All right, dude. Zack Mahoney, dude. Thank you for being here. You're on America Plus. You are an innovator in America. I love your website. I love IndeeHub. I think you're innovating in the movie realm. And dude, just like tell me about like how did IndeeHub come about? Like how did this whole situation with Bitcoin, like combining Bitcoin and movies, come about for you?
Man, I'm just, this is going to be all over the place. So at any point, just, interject, ask a question, get more specific.
Go for it.
I mean, it's kind of a simple idea. I'll try to start simple and we can sort of expand on it. But I personally sort of fell into the crypto rabbit hole in early 2017. And for those of us that were either around then or came around then, you'll remember that was the ICO craze. And so you've always had the Bitcoin maxis, but at that point we had all of these other L1s and tokens that were raising money in order to solve every problem known to mankind. It was like, we're going to literally solve every single thing that there is. Every problem that's ever been a problem is now solvable on a blockchain. It was madness. Mm-hmm. Like there was literally a
scams upon scams.
They were all scams. There was one called Dentacoin. They were like dentists on a blockchain, and it had volume. Like people were buying this thing. Anyway, I totally digress. It was madness at that time. And it took me a while to like suss out Bitcoin and what Bitcoin is, how Bitcoin is unique. But the key idea for me was that we can now start to stream money in the same way that we stream data. We can break it up into little packets and we can route them and we can find more efficient ways for them to move. And anybody who's had any experience with the legacy financial system, which is literally everybody, it's a total disaster and you cannot do that. And the key issue here is essentially who is the arbiter of truth? Who gets to decide what is true and what is not true with regards to a particular ledger? So if I send money to you from my bank, there's 4 people involved. My bank, me, your bank, and you. Our banks have a relationship with each other. My bank does not have a relationship with you. You do not have a relationship with my bank. It necessitates 4 parties in a transaction that really should just be 2 people, like cash settlement would just be you and I. So it was, my point is that it's the old system is incredibly slow and it's incredibly inefficient.
Banks suck.
Exactly.
And Bitcoin fixes it.
It does.
Right?
It does. In a lot of ways, it fixes at least half of the problems. The biggest problem that human beings have really is trust. But I digress. The point is if you can stream money the way that we stream data, movies are uniquely suited for that use case. It's not like a blog. Even podcasts to some extent can be non-linear. You can chop them up. People use little bits to promo. But a movie is intended. Every moment A connects to moment B, connects to moment C. Almost like a blockchain.
Yeah.
Like moment C is dependent on moment B. If you don't have the context of B, you don't understand what C is. I can just play a movie without context, and you'd be like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on, and this doesn't mean anything to me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we consume movies linearly, and if you can tie payments to that linear distribution of data, which is what Netflix solved for, it starts to fundamentally change the architecture of the business side of the industry, which part of the reason that film is having the problems that it's having right now is that the business side of it is still tied to a world in which unit sales reign supreme, like licensing deals and union contracts and performers deals and music rights and all of this stuff sort of was built up around a totally different financial technology that was predicated on unit sales, on ticket sales, on box office receipts. Netflix changed the deal. Now we're streaming data. We're not buying tickets anymore. But the business side hasn't really caught up. Once those ideas connected, in my mind, I realized, or at least that I had the sneaking suspicion that it would solve a lot of the problems that I had both in front of and behind the camera. So that's it. That's really it. Data, money, streaming.
When did you start figuring that out? So that was like 2018, 2019, or during the pandemic, or
17.
It was all 2017. You started thinking about this all right there.
Yeah. I mean, the streaming money was not a unique idea. Like, I did not come up with that, right? That was one of the main points of a lot of these other L1s that existed back then that were really popular. The biggest one would have been the XRP ledger. Fast, cheap. Bitcoin can do about 8 transactions a second, 8 to 10 on average, whatever it is. The XRP ledger, even back then, you had the ability to open up payment channels on the ledger, and you could do 50,000 transactions a second back and forth, which is kind of how Lightning works right now. But the problem is the L1 was not as distributed and secure as Lightning's L1, Bitcoin. So that wasn't a unique idea that we can start to route money like we route packets of data, like TCP/IP. But I was just, my whole world was films and movies and production and entertainment. And so it just was like, doink. And that sound is the idea connecting. Doink. Boing, ding, 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 ding. And a lot of these other ICOs, there were a lot of ICOs, and there still are to some extent, this whole Web3 thing, which I don't subscribe to, but
Sort of bullshit.
yeah, it's essentially the idea that we need to create a token in order to solve a given problem, which is just not, that's just not true.
I think you're creating a new problem.
Yeah, and like a regulatory nightmare. So you had a lot of people who understood how to build an L1 or build a blockchain or build this technology, and they're like, oh, well, we're going to put this on movies, but they didn't understand anything about the industry. They didn't understand anything about the movie business. All the people who were in the movie business were far too busy actually doing shit to care about what, an L1, like they didn't, it was like, no, we're actually doing work.
Yeah, Hollywood's not technical. Like, it took them forever to figure out. It's like 2019, Disney Plus comes out. Netflix had been around since streaming on Netflix, 2008, 2009? Like, when did Netflix start streaming?
It started in earnest, roughly 2008, 2009.
And then 10 years later, Disney finally comes out with a streaming service. So it's like they're late. They're always late to the game.
Exactly. And it makes sense, right? Like, they've got real money. They've got real business. They can't turn on a dime. They shouldn't turn on a dime. That's not how, they have moats. They've got lawyers. Like, they don't need to move quickly. In a lot of ways, we kind of ride in their wake. But in the same way that Netflix in 2008 started to change the structure of the industry, and it took 15 years for them to go from mailing DVDs to people to spending more money on production than every other studio combined.
Which is insane.
Insane.
That's billions, right? Billions upon billions.
Many, many. And I fundamentally believe that we're on the verge of another paradigm shift that'll take another 15 years or so. And I fundamentally believe that the business of filmmaking will be impacted. Netflix changed the exhibition and the delivery, and that's great, and that's important. It's not as profound of a change as the financial infrastructure of the industry. In my opinion, that will be a much, much, much larger change. And as far as the internet, like, we're in the bottom of the third. It's been, let's just call it 25 years. Let's just call it a generation for sake of that's nothing. Even if it's 40 years, it's nothing in terms of its impact on society. So, again, Netflix is a big deal. I'm not saying it's not a big deal, but I think that the biggest changes are yet to come.
I think I agree, because just me as a consumer, I'm 27. I've been around, I'll just say I'm as old as the internet. I'm a little bit older. I grew up on YouTube. I grew up just scrolling on my parents' computer and just seeing the entire situation just change in terms of what I'm watching, where the news is. At a very young age, I knew that there was a difference between what was on the TV and what was on the internet. These two things were not connected. And I was always just more gravitated towards the internet, clearly, because I'm just a young person.
What do you think that was? What do you think you gravitated more towards YouTube than, say, like a movie theater or something?
Well, I was always going to the movies. I was always into movies. Like,
Okay.
I was obsessed with Toy Story when I was a toddler, and then I remember just loving movies in like the 4th and 5th grade, and wanting to like perform and stuff. And then 2008, you get Iron Man and The Dark Knight, and that is actually like for me personally, I'm 11 years old in '08. And I see Heath Ledger's Joker, and that's like my cinematic awakening. I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like
this is possible with movies. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then I'm impersonating Heath Ledger. I'm doing the Joker for Halloween, and then I'm like, and then I get into like, who made this movie? And then it's Chris Nolan, and it's Jon Favreau. It's like, oh, directing, like behind the scenes, and then I'm watching behind the scenes of everything, and I was watching those behind the scenes on YouTube. And the DVDs, of course, but like I'm looking for the information about the movies on YouTube. And then there was like a whole culture on YouTube when I was in high school of there's a show called like AMC Movie Talk, Collider Movie Talk, and like I was consuming the information around cinema online more, and that made me want to get into it a lot more. So, and everything else was just like the normal TV was just not doing that. Like I would watch a movie. I would watch like there was always movies on FX. Remember that little theme song?
So there was a bifurcation for you between television, the internet, and the movie theater in terms of an exhibition format.
Absolutely.
And TV it was like there was no place for it in your mind. You're like, I don't understand the point of this.
Yeah, like I would
that's fascinating.
I'd be scrolling through it, and like there'd be some movies like I remember seeing. I knew that like growing up we had DirecTV, and I knew that DirecTV had video on demand. Like we would be able to rent a movie on DirecTV, but I hated watching movies on TV because of the commercials and because of like just that specifically. I hated the commercials, and I knew from a very young age they were editing shit out.
Yep.
I said, I don't know.
That's not what he said.
Literally. And I remember being like really pissed off, and like, and my dad telling me about like censorship. Or just like general, like, oh yeah, well they have to if there's like a live football game, they have a 7-second delay and they need a censor. I'm like, why? Like I was always like so confused about that, and so I just didn't like it. I was never into it, and I was I would sneak my parents' money to buy a movie on iTunes or to buy the South Park movie or to get a few episodes of Modern Family or. I remember renting John Wick when it was on VOD, and that was like the first wave of John Wick when like John Wick was getting super popular. To my memory, I think that's how it got popular. But I was always looking for no commercials.
Yeah,
that's really what it was. And if I had to pay for it, I would just use my parents' money. And then growing up, I would usually buy the DVD, but then I see DVDs like decreasing and things. And when it comes to streaming, my consumption has been different because. A part of me feels like Netflix and a lot of like things that go straight to streaming are almost like made for DVD movies, or they're like made like they're lower quality.
Yeah.
And and I've been like upset within like the last 10 years of like the movies in the movie theater are still like high quality, but that financial model, like they're going for the sequels, they're going for the IP.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well maybe there's an opportunity to like have better entertainment, different types of stories. Online, and some movies are quality. Like some straight to Netflix movies are good, but a lot of them,
most of them are misses,
big misses, huge. Like they just suck. Like every Rock movie sucks. Like there's this new movie coming out with The Rock and Chris Evans. It's gonna be in the movie theater, but it looks like a Netflix movie.
Yep.
It's like they're like kidnapping Santa or something.
Yeah,
like,
I saw that commercial last night. I was like, just turned him over to my wife. Like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, what is going on?
Looks absolutely atrocious.
God.
And so it's almost
no
like
offense to anybody who was on that movie.
Yeah, but regardless, like
except whoever greenlit it.
Objectively, the Rock movies aren't really that good, unless he's gonna do something with A24. Unless there's like a few handful of studios and companies that are actually trying to make quality and are trying to have some sort of aesthetic or some sort of brand around that. But that's like far and in between. And then if you have like a real filmmaker like Coppola. He funds his own movie. Hollywood doesn't respect that. And then like on the audience side, there's also this weird thing with the audience where audiences on Twitter might say like, we want original stuff. I'm so tired of Marvel. I'm so tired of sequels. But then like when Coppola comes out, like it doesn't make any money. Yeah. So it's like you complained and then you don't see it.
Yep.
So it's like this whole thing is fucked.
Yep.
But then there's this other side where I saw it and really begun with me with podcasting, streaming money for the content while you're consuming the content. I saw the opportunity with podcasting in 2021, and my mind immediately went to movies because my mind always goes to movies.
Yep.
And I didn't know how that could work. I didn't know how that could even be possible. Or if like, you know, just that entire situation. I'm not a technical person. I don't really know the details of the tech behind Bitcoin, but I know you can do a lot of things with Bitcoin. I'm like, there has to be a way. And I remember during the pandemic, I was drawing up like these, like I have these crazy diagrams of like, of a token, like streaming a token for a movie. And it's like, I think I was coming up with some like movie theater casino, some bullshit like that. Like you'd be able to gamble on a movie and then make more if it went better or something like that. It was some crazy, I had arrows going everywhere. But I've always had the sense that there's like something can change. Not that it should change, but it can change. Like there's a real opportunity that it could change. And when I look at IndeeHub, you're really going towards that new infrastructure of how a movie can come up and be consumed. And just because it's straight on your computer, you know, it doesn't mean that the quality is lower. It just brings more opportunity for the filmmaker to make something that they really want. And then the audience can actually see that and can engage with that in a more authentic way. I think so. Because when you pay for a ticket at the movie theater, it's one price for the movie, but you don't know if that movie's going to be good.
Yep.
And the opportunity with streaming money, you can stream if you like it. You can pay when you like it. Like, and that's the model with the internet. I've been thinking like there's this guy on Instagram I follow named Producer Patrick. He's documenting the downfall of Hollywood. It's actually pretty hilarious.
Yeah, if you got to get him to follow IndeeHub. We got to get this going.
Yes. I'm trying to get into that. I'm trying to tell him about it, but that's like a different thing. But he's documenting the downfall of Hollywood, and Hollywood is just not keeping up with technology and with the internet. He was just at some like unscripted content convention or something, and it was like a bunch of studio heads and producers, and there's like a Q&A section, and somebody asked like, what is your response? Like, what are you guys thinking about competing with TikTok or competing with social media? And like the studio heads had nothing to say about that. Like they had no response to the internet. They don't know how to think about the internet.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives an opportunity for more independent people, more independent mindset artists and filmmakers like us who see an opportunity with Bitcoin, who still love movies. Because that's the other thing too. Like people, like there's like this drag on movies.
Yep.
And it's like, no, like that's not real. Like I refuse to believe that narrative. Like if anything is fake news, like movies going away is fake news.
Yeah.
I remember reading some interview with Brad Pitt. He was like, it was like in 2019 when he was promoting Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and they were like, Brad, what's next? And he was like, oh, it's going to be far and in between. We'll see if movies are even around in the future. And I'm like, what the fuck, Brad? Like, you're the biggest fucking movie star ever. You really believe movies won't be around? And I can't fathom that. And so I have so much emotion with bringing movies, like just keeping movies. Because I don't want it to be scrolling and I see like just clips of something. Like I want, like there's a value in sitting down and seeing that linear story or non-linear. If it's some Chris Nolan the story's told backwards.
Linearly non-linear.
Yeah. But that singular event of a movie, like that's super important, I believe.
Well, even think about memes, right? Like, I've never heard anybody really describe what's going on with a meme. So I'll just throw my hat in the ring.
Give it to me.
Usually, and again, this is generally speaking, like someone will pull a meme out of a movie, right? Like I just saw one the other day that was from what was the name of the one with Matt Damon, and they're building the Ford, the racing movie. Where they built the first GT.
Yeah.
What the hell is that movie called?
It's called Ford and Ferrari. Ford versus
Ferrari. Yeah. So anyway, whatever. This is like kind of a classic meme template where Matt Damon rolls out, and he puts the sign up for the guy coming around the bend, and what movies part of what your job is as a filmmaker or a storyteller, particularly an actor, is to, when you're setting up a moment, a scene, you're doing a superlative of that scene or of that moment. You're doing the most of that, the essence of that vibe or that feeling, whether it's shame, it's disappointment, it's betrayal, it's love, like whatever's going on in that scene, it has to be the pinnacle of that frequency, of that vibration. The reason that meme templates are almost always movies is because filmmakers, their job is to make the most specific versions of those emotions.
Yes.
So those emotions are always true, which is why we like them. They're universal. They're universally applicable all of the time, which is why you can throw a meme template from a movie into any situation. Not any situation, but there's other situations where you're like, oh yeah, that totally works here too. Because their job is to translate a part of the human experience in a way that the most people can relate all of the time. My point is that even the memes themselves are hearkening back to the master art form of doing that, which is cinema. Like that is the master art form that encompasses all of it. I think, side note, I think music is the foundation upon which all of that is built.
But it's combined.
But the masterpiece is the whole enchilada. And, you know, really, what I think what you're saying, and I would agree with you. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but what we're presupposing is that storytelling is not going away.
Correct.
And as far as we're aware right now, filmmaking is still the primary successful, effective methodology for storytelling. TikTok is not going to change that. YouTube does not change that. Those aren't stories. They're little vignettes. Sometimes they're like a point that you're making, but to have a whole complete, actual story, which is fundamental to the evolution of consciousness, particularly for human beings, and has been since the dawn of time. It's not going away. It's going to change. It's going to adapt. It's going to evolve. But storytelling is not going away. This is ludicrous. It's completely insane. And it's certainly not going to be around in the way that like these A-list legends, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, George Clooney, these guys. The Hollywood that their stardom was born into, that's gone. Yeah. That's never coming back.
And that might be what he was even speaking to.
Yeah.
Because those types of movies were like starring Brad Pitt. It's like he has the volume of movies for me to say like, okay, I'll assume this new movie with him is good. But that's no longer the driving force, and like Tom Cruise is like the very, very, very last guy to even do that, because we all know how crazy he is for movies. Like he's gonna literally put everything he can, and he's also gonna try his best to inspire all the young people around him to try to put everything in they can for that movie. And they always come out of it was like, it was a wild experience, and like they're always like, I always see all these like interviews of people talking about like what Tom Cruise gave them, or like it's always like some old Hollywood advice. Like I forget who it was, but he told some actor to like, you need to learn to dance, or like you need to learn it yourself if you want this to be authentic. In the old days, the studios would have paid for this type of training for this movie, but that's not a thing anymore. You need to do that, and that's such an old way of thinking, and it's very romantic. But things are evolving, and there's this, technology is eating everything, and it's up to the filmmaker to figure out what tools do they want to use to make their movie, and what's the best version of it. That's really what it is. Like, what's the best version of this scene? What's the best version of this story? And that's why you do get like gems of like big movies, like that's why like when it comes to like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, like everyone saw those movies because those filmmakers really have a storytelling driving them. Like they don't want to just make a movie. They don't want to just do something for money. Like they actually want to tell a story. Like, what's the biggest impact that this character can go through?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh fuck, Spider-Man's gone. Like, like we get these crazy moments, and that's like on the big scale of pop culture. But then on the smaller scale, I can't really think of any movies right now, but like there are smaller movies that have a big like incredible emotion, and they can freeze frame an emotion. I'm thinking about like Breakfast Club right now. At the end of Breakfast Club, like The freeze frame has become a meme, but Breakfast Club ends on a freeze frame of this guy being victorious. He got the girl's kiss. He has her earring or something, and like he changed. And it's sort of like when you watch that, it's like hell yeah, like I vibe with that. I love that.
Yeah.
And
they're taking universality, right? They're taking a universal human experience, which is true across time and space. You know, there's 7 movies or whatever we can make. It's all just different iterations of the same stories over and over and over and over again. The context always changes, of course, but that timeless human experience of betrayal or of loss or of revenge or of fear, you know, these superlative human experiences, the context changes, but the frequency doesn't. And the storytellers that are really, really concerned about doing their jobs correctly are the ones who are worried about communicating that universal theme to them. It's not to the most people. It's not like quantitative. It's qualitative. If you get to the superlative thing, it is like almost by definition going to resonate with the most amount of people.
What are your favorite movies? Like, what do you think? Like, what's like the peak versions of these things for you? Like you just think the movie just hits it every time.
I think that there's a few. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list, but I think what you mentioned earlier, I thought it was really interesting. You're talking about Dark Knight, which was your generation's, you know, kind of the film that woke you up to what's possible with cinema. For me, that movie was American History X. That movie destroyed me.
That's with Edward Norton, right?
Yeah.
That's when he's a Nazi?
Ed Norton and Edward Furlong.
Yeah.
Destroyed me. I was way too young to have watched that movie. I don't know how old I was. 12 or something. 11, 10. I don't know. But I hadn't experienced, like, it literally dove into my consciousness, into my soul, and just ripped me inside out. I was bawling at the end of that movie for probably 15 minutes after I saw it. And I realized what the medium was capable of in that moment through that movie. None of them have had a bigger impact on me in the way that movie did. It was like the first time you do anything, you know, the first time you drink, the first time you do drugs, the first time you do this, first time you do that. Like you almost never get back to that, like how intense that first time was. American History X was that for me, for sure. But there were other movies that, I mean, like The Matrix. Like, The Matrix is an absolute fucking masterpiece. Like, to say that it's sci-fi is like...
It doesn't work.
It's like,
No.
This is a universal... this is a universal exploration of consciousness, of waking up. And it just happened to be told like with a sci-fi, you know, key and a sci-fi note. You know, but then there's other ones that like every time I watch it, it gets funnier. Like The Big Lebowski. I've seen that movie.
Oh, that's one of my favorite.
45 times.
Yes.
Every time I'm just like, these guys were on it. They are so good. This was so, but that's how the truth is, right? Like a great piece of music, the Bible, a really good wine, really good food. It doesn't get old. You don't get bored of it. The layers just keep unfolding and unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And so it's like, that's what makes it timeless. Jurassic Park, incredible. Gladiator, incredible. Saving Private Ryan, incredible.
It's crazy how Spielberg, like you just listed Spielberg's like multiple times, and
legend. I mean, but he was a master. He was a master at what he did. You know, again, not exhaustive. There's so many other movies that I always forget, and I always get pissed at myself for forgetting. But I think, like, to stay on theme, American History X, fundamentally changed it altered my perspective as a human being permanently, and that will never leave my consciousness.
Did that wake you up to cinema, or just like a bigger world in general?
Both, right? Like the human condition, number one, which is the point. The point is to have a human experience, and ideally one that brings us closer together, that gives us more empathy for our fellow human beings, whether they're making mistakes or whether they're succeeding or whatever, that you see someone, you can see someone who's in deep pain, and instead of having judgment and pushing them away, you can figure out a way to address that pain. That's a human problem. So ideally we have, I mean, of course, if it's great, it gets us deeper into the cinema world, but the more important thing is the human part of it, which is the whole point of telling stories in the first place. So we can relate to one another.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I've never seen American History X. I need to watch it.
I mean,
while you were saying that, I was thinking about, I just watched this, one of the newest Joe Rogan episodes yesterday. He had JD Vance, he's running for vice president, and out of the blue, this guy just mentions how he was in some hotel and he was rewatching a movie he had seen a billion times before, and he had always loved it, Boys in the Hood. And he realized that somehow Boys in the Hood influenced his political takes and his like economic takes. And I haven't seen that movie either, but he's talking about like how that the movie's pretty much about like black nationalism, and now like here he is like running as a Republican, and it's literally influencing how he thinks about the world, influencing economics. It's like that's movies. Yep. And I no one was ready for that. I didn't even like I was giggling when I was listening to it. I was like, what the fuck? Like, why? That's incredible. This movie from I think that came out in the 80s, right? Boys in the Hood. That's with Ice Cube. Yeah. Like that's history, and that's like, and they froze that moment in time. They were able to capture that community and that mindset in that era, and then all of a sudden that's influencing 2024 politics, the 2024 reality.
91. Yeah, Boys in the Hood. 91.
Dude, that's so like that's so wild. That's so wild to me.
It's crazy, but it illustrates how important good storytelling is to the structuring of our minds, and you know, it just illustrates that it is invaluable that storytellers do their jobs for society correctly with enthusiasm, and that we support them in doing that.
So what's wrong with the system now? Like, are studios just old and tired and not paying attention, or are they really like running themselves into the ground and not even thinking? Like, like from your perspective, what is that? What's the real problem?
The incentives are just misaligned. So I guess that's a different way of saying the system is just dysfunctional. The system is locked up. The system is frozen. It needs to be dismantled because it doesn't function anymore. It no longer serves its purpose. So this strike and the last couple of years, particularly in this industry, have been brutal. I'm not like applauding people's pain and discomfort, but the industry needs to be burned to the ground and it needs to be rebuilt for the betterment of everybody. And it was the same thing that happened in 2008. This is more intense. There were more strikes. Things are going on longer. Things are extended. The severity is maybe like the magnitude is a little higher, but it was the same vibe. You know, nobody knew if TV was ever going to come back. Nobody knew if movies were going to come back. The whole ladder completely shifted. Again, like I said earlier, I think that we're still we're in this transitionary phase, but it's going to get better. The system is going to change. But the issue is in how the system is currently designed. We have this rickety building that has elements of, like I was saying before, unit sales, licensing from a time that just doesn't exist anymore. Like, it doesn't exist. They still call it a box office. Like yeah, you go to the AMC in Burbank. That's literally no one. There's no one in the box office. There isn't a box office. There aren't box seats. You know, like back in the day, it was like free seats at the bottom. You paid for the ones at the top. That's where box office even comes from. Like we're in such a different paradigm now that the system just needs to change. So more specifically, what happened, part of the thing that's happened is that you've had this, so fiat, right? Like we can talk Bitcoin, we can talk money.
Let's do it.
There's been a massive consolidation, and this is true across all industries. This isn't only entertainment or media related, but you've got this huge consolidation across this industry. So massive whales, publicly traded companies just keep buying smaller companies because they have this mandate as a publicly traded company that they have to increase shareholder value. And there's a point, but there's a logical point at which like there's no more customers left. Like there's nothing to do. So they'll go in and they'll buy all of these other companies, whether they're making money or they're not making money. And so what happens is that all of the risk in making a movie is they're trying to get rid of it. They're trying to minimize risk because that's what you do when you're at a big company like that, in that financial structure. But film is unique in its risk profile. It is a very unique business, and it is like the intersection of you have to take a certain amount of risk, but you also have to be financially savvy, and you got to figure out a way to make it economically viable. You know, if you're making buggy whips, you can make the same thing over and over and over and over again, and that's what the market expects. It wants consistency. It wants the product that it's buying to be the same every time it buys it. That's not movies. And, you know, we can talk a lot of shit about, you know, the movie mogul period, but there was a period in time when people's egos were on the line with their studios. You get a private company and you get some dude who's egocentric and he's like, no, I am going to make the greatest fucking movie that's ever been produced, or whatever. That's a bad example, but you start to have this competition and the risk goes up. The more risk we can take, the more boundaries we can push, the farther we can push consciousness forward. But that can't really happen in a structure where the whole thing is owned by publicly traded companies, because in that situation, all of the responsibility is abdicated. So it's this really perverse incentive system where somebody's a CEO of something and they're like, well, I'm going to get fired in 3 years anyway, so I just want to get my bonus. I want to repeat the financial success, so I'm just going to go into the data, and the data is going to tell me do Spider-Man 27 because I'm not going to get fired sooner and I'll probably get a bonus. They don't get a reward for taking responsibility and saying the movies that we've produced are garbage. There is no incentive for them to do that. And so they don't. The idea behind IndeeHub is that we change that incentive system and we say, you're going to take all of the risk, you filmmaker or producer or team. You're going to get almost all of the reward. IndeeHub is going to work on the infrastructure, on the financial plumbing, on the legal foundations, but you get to go take the risk. We can't have these people abdicating all of the risk, minimizing all of the risk, and then hiring the people who should be getting all the reward for taking all of the risk. Like, they're completely divorced. And so everybody's phoning it in. You have no incentive to go do a good job on a movie because they're like, here's a flat rate, take it or leave it.
You have a bigger incentive to delete a movie.
Yeah.
Literally, Warner Brothers deleting a Looney Tunes movie. Like, that's, you know, Warner Brothers deleting Batgirl, which maybe I wouldn't have seen, but it's still like something it's still a movie people were making. Like, they had a tax incentive to delete it. Like, that's wild.
Exactly. So that's a long way to try to answer it, which is the system is broken. The incentives are totally perverse and backwards. We need to create a new system that puts us back in alignment with proper incentives that are appropriate for storytelling. Mm-hmm. That's very different than making an F-150 or producing a syringe in a hospital. Like, it's a completely different business model.
It's not a replica. Movies are not replicatable products.
No, and
which is the problem.
We don't want them to be, right? We have this insatiable appetite for, I want the same thing but different. I want the same thing but different. That's unique. That's super unique. Music for sure, movies for sure. So we need to get the business, we need to get the engine, the energetic engine underneath, like, rebuilt and oriented in the right direction.
And that's IndeeHub. So you're rebuilding the financial structure of how movies are sort of funded and then also distributed. Is that right?
Yeah, we're trying to change the whole pipe from where the money starts, the audience member, and where it ends, the filmmaker. And so this whole thing in between, we can just get as many people out of the way as humanly possible, create a direct, energetic relationship from where it starts to where it ends. And this thing should feed itself in a more proper cycle if they're connected correctly. You know, if you got, you know, it's like resistors in a, you know, and you got 15 people who are in the way between the payer and the receiver of the money, like, the signal dies. It doesn't even get there. And then there's certainly not enough signal for these people to continue to produce great work or to get better at their job. So just get as many people out of the way as possible, plug them into each other, and let the thing run.
Yeah. Is Bitcoin really the key to all that, or is it possible to stream dollars one day? Like, is that
Bitcoin is not the key. Bitcoin itself is not the key. The Bitcoin technology is the key.
which is blockchain? Bitcoin technology. Is that blockchain, or is that like, how do we, like, that's sort of evolving with this conversation of Bitcoin, and we got social media like Nostr. They're trying to change the incentives of social media with Bitcoin technology. Like, you see how it's all changing? It's
Well, okay, so I'll get this is my perspective. I'm sure some hyper nerds can tell me to fuck off or whatever, but from where I'm sitting, this is kind of how I see it.
yeah.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin, blockchain, like blockchains existed before Bitcoin came around. Like companies have been using a blockchain for, like Toyota. I know this woman who was producing working on blockchains for Toyota, like 30 years ago or 20 years ago.
Interesting.
The thing, protocols. Okay, the word I want to use here is protocols. The internet is a protocol. It is, anyone can tap into it. Nobody controls the rules of it. It's something that we all use and agree on, and is open source and openly usable. There's no one that can tell you you can't use it. There's no one that can tell you you have to use it. English is like that too, right? English is a protocol. Anyone can learn English. We all use it to communicate efficiently and effectively globally. No one can unilaterally change the rules of English. Like if I say, hey, I'm going to change the definition of this word, I have to go convince however many people speak English on the planet that this is the new definition of the word. Good luck with that. So Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a communications protocol that happens to work really well as money. Lightning is a protocol that taps into the Bitcoin protocol. The reason I say this is because these protocols aren't permissioned. They're permissionless. The banking system of the United States is permissioned. Visa or PayPal is permissioned. You need their permission to be on that network. So Bitcoin, IndeeHub is we're built on top of Lightning, which is to say that we're like Bitcoin native. But the important part is that there's this permissionless protocol, this permissionless payments protocol that we're using that anyone can build on top of and anyone can tap into. We use a payments provider on Lightning. If that payments provider goes out, we can just go find somebody else who runs that infrastructure also on top of Lightning. There's multiple companies that do it. Anyone in the world can participate using that protocol. No one can tell you can't. So you can issue stable coins on top of that. It could be a dollar representation. It could be USDT or a euro stable coin or a yen stable coin or whatever. It doesn't matter. But the point is that you can use that protocol without having to have permission of the people who wrote the rules of it. So
we just need a protocol for the dollar, and then like more people will like start to understand this system. Do you think so? Because every time when I talk about Bitcoin, people roll their eyes and people are just like, they don't really care, or they sort of get that it's money. Even people in my generation, like some people sort of understand crypto. And even when it comes to the conversation with podcasting 2.0 stuff, people like there's sort of been like a ceiling met when it comes to streaming sats and people using this thing. And I feel like the only way to move forward is if we're sort of allowed to innovate with the dollar, or the government itself innovates with the dollar, implementing some sort of new protocol and not it being stuck within a permission system with the Fed or with Visa. Something like that needs to happen, but
that thing is Bitcoin. The thing you're talking about is Bitcoin.
Is Bitcoin.
The reason that you say that the government should create a protocol for the dollar. It structurally can't possibly work that way, because the dollars themselves are sourced from the central bank. The birthplace of the dollars are from a tightly controlled, centralized entity. Even if you have a dollar stable coin, that's just a representation of somebody supposedly having that dollar deposit on a ledger somewhere. Back to what we were talking about in the beginning of this is, who is the arbiter of truth? That's what all of this is about. Who gets to dictate the truth? Is it the people running the dollar ledger? Because you can't you can't verify that. You can't adjust it. You can't download the ledger and say, yes, there are 21 million coins or however. You literally can't. We have to trust that they are the ones that they are being honest about the ledger, and that they'll operate that ledger, equally and universally. And they don't. Like, we know they don't. They turn people's bank accounts off that they don't like. It's a permission system. So I'm trying to the protocol aspect is important.
Yeah.
But a dollar on a protocol is still permissioned in some sense. So even if we have a Tether on top of Lightning, the U.S. government is tapping on Tether's shoulder, saying, "Hey, you have to block this transaction because this is a terrorist,"
which is bullshit. I mean, if it's terrorism.
This is our catch-22, right? Like, we're like, but the point of Bitcoin is that is the thing. It's never going to be a sovereign currency that is actually a protocol that's actually open and permissionless. This is why Bitcoin is a big deal. It's the first time we have an actual unit of account that cannot be duplicated digitally, that is digitally native. So it's few. I know this is all we can. I love. We can talk about this. It fuses the physical world and the digital world, and the people that most people. The reason that people, particularly in the United States, chuckle and laugh and get annoyed when you talk about Bitcoin is because they don't actually understand money as a technology at all.
Yeah.
They haven't really thought about it. And the reason they haven't thought about it is because we've been blessed that our financial system for the last 80 years has more or less been great. We don't have to think about it. You go talk about this with anybody in any other country that's ever dealt with with a currency that's been destroyed or manipulated by a small group of people, and they get it immediately. They think about money more than anyone in the United States. Well, not anyone, but your average person, dollar for pound for pound.
More than your average American.
They think about money way more. It's way more important. And they realize how important the tool is. In the United States, most people don't understand how a check works. They don't understand how a credit card works, or when you pay for something at a grocery store, like, you're not actually paying. I'm not making a point, just an observation that it's an uphill battle to try and explain Bitcoin because you have to explain
the protocol.
There's so many things you have to explain for them to get it in the first place.
So can we make that easy somehow? Like, because I'm aligned with IndeeHub, I'm aligned with Bitcoin, and like, I will continue to push it. I'm going to be using it. I'm one of the first directors to use Bitcoin to fund my movies.
Yes.
So it's like that's like, I'm really proud of that. But then, like, my friends still don't get it. Like, I literally get my friends paid who helped me make the movie, and they still don't get it. It's like there's some sort of glass ceiling. There's some sort of invisible threshold that we need to push through. We need to pierce the veil for it. And I don't know what that is. Do you?
I mean, the
maybe
abstract...
just culture, maybe just culture and just continuing to talk about it, continuing to talk about how bad the money system is, or
it's. Unfortunately, I think that the answer is pain.
Right.
COVID and the government's response to COVID has done more to wake people up than anything that you or I could have said, screaming from the rooftops about, decentralization. Like, no one gives a shit. Yeah. They care, and I understand. They care when they're in pain. And so we're in this, like, kind of unfortunate situation, which is like the more people understand Bitcoin, it probably means that they were in significant amounts of pain. They were in more pain than they were previously before they understood Bitcoin. Michael Saylor's a good example of this. Like, he poo-pooed Bitcoin. He was talking shit on Bitcoin, and then he found himself in a situation. He was in significant amount of pain, financial pain, and it clicked. A lot of people are going to have to go through a lot more pain to really understand why the technology is important and why it's useful. And I'm not convinced that the retail public in the United States is going to be the entity that brings Bitcoin into its final form. I think that that's going to be probably third world country. It's a bottom up situation. And I think that so I guess my answer to you is pain and time. And it's why at IndeeHub, like, you can pay in anything you want. You don't have to pay in Bitcoin. You don't have to care about Bitcoin. You don't have to know anything about Bitcoin. That's not crucial to understand, with regards to using it. And I don't expect most audiences to care for quite some time. But if we can use that technology to solve the payments problem and the pain point for filmmakers, that's really what matters. They're in the most pain. And so if we can try to solve that for them, we've done a good job. Now, like for your friends on IndeeHub, right? Like for them to understand it, it has to be material. Yeah. They have to be like, how much money did I make on YouTube last week? 45 cents. How much money did I make on IndeeHub last week? $55. Like,
yeah.
It has to start getting that
clear,
obvious. But that just takes time.
Yeah, just time.
Just time.
Time and bottom up, and then it'll come to America when it just works.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that Bitcoin will in the United States will be a savings technology. It doesn't. The tax code does not incentivize people using Bitcoin to spend. Like, I'm not paying 20% extra for anything. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm going to owe tax on that, and I don't care. And frankly, my credit card works just fine. But I don't have any tool in my arsenal that I can use to really protect myself from debasement. That's what the tool is useful for here in the United States. And we're even seeing this globally, right? Like, stable coins on other networks are becoming widely needed and requested as a payments technology. And so we're starting to see two different things happen. You've got payments technology and you've got savings technology. At some point, the savings technology becomes worth so much money that we say, well, why don't we just use it as the payments technology? But it has stages that it has to go through in order to get there.
It's very interesting. So we need more. So pretty much, long story short, we need a protocol for movies. Is that sort of what it's all building up to? Instead of a platform, because all these studios and the movie theater, these are all sort of platforms, the way I see it.
Yes, I think that it's a good. I think that we need to plug. We need to have a common. In my opinion, the common protocol is money. Money is a communications protocol. Money communicates that
attention and energy.
Exactly. Like, that this user actually liked this product. I don't get to when I subscribe to Netflix, I don't get to dictate where that capital goes. I give them $20 a month. They get to decide who gets the money and where it goes. It makes more sense to say, hey, I am allocating that monetary energy on a per second basis of where my attention went. And then we can funnel resources to the people who are actually getting the attention. That's just a feedback in a market that should naturally be there, rather than this black box where who knows where the money goes at that point, even though we might have all been paying attention to this or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that there's always going to be, there has to be production companies. We have to decentralize all of the decision making. But we need to clean up the line of communication with regards to where the money's coming from and where the money's going.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes me want to just be the prime example of it. Like, just me as a guy with an ego. Like, I just want to let's just fucking. Whoa! I just hit one of my buttons on accident. You didn't hear what I just heard. Ow!
His ears are bleeding.
But hang on, let me put these back on. I didn't know how hard I hit the table. That's funny. I want there to be like a prime example of a movie making this work, because that is also like, if a filmmaker is able to see how much money do I make on YouTube, how much money do I make on IndeeHub, I want the audience to see what the system is like. Oh, look at these filmmakers over here doing this thing with this new system, opposed to what's going on with Disney or Warner Brothers. Like, these are things that the audience needs to see as well. And so, we're so early, like IndeeHub is still in beta.
Yeah.
It's like, it's wild to be a part of this conversation so early and be so inspired. But I'm telling you right now, Zach, I'm so deep into it. I'm literally thinking about making a movie every single day. I'm thinking about what to do. I'm thinking about how to do it. I'm thinking about the money. I'm thinking about the locations. I'm thinking about how we get. If I want to build a set, how the fuck am I going to build this? Like all these things, and then I'm thinking, how am I going to convince my friends who are helping me to actually be a part of this new system? Because when I've made my short films in the past, specifically last year with Magic Mushroom Fun Time, my cinematographer, he was really encouraging me to put it out into film festivals. And I just saw zero value in that, you know? And
Interesting.
there's value in, I guess, the networking and just talking to people about my process or about myself and just engaging with that in that way. But the way that I see it, the way that the industry works, it's not through film festivals. Like, I'm not Spike Jonze, I'm not Tarantino, I'm not like, you know, like fucking 2019 Joker is the biggest movie at Venice.
What a joke, right?
Like, no, it is a joke.
It's a joke.
It is a joke. And then I did enjoy the second one. I'll just say that. Like, it was sort of, I'm not sure if you saw what Tarantino said about Joker 2. It was like, Tarantino said, the Joker directed Joker 2. Like, it was a giant fuck you to the audience, fuck you to the studio. They used $200 million and they made a fucking musical out of Joker. Like, the Joker made Joker 2. But what I'm saying is, like, the big IPs, like the big movies from the big, like it's not no one's breaking out within a film festival anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not even trying to get famous. I'm inspired to make movies. I'm inspired to make a living making movies. And this conversation of like how to make a living with producing things online, that thing is changing. And I also don't want to do some I Love Lucy shit and it be like advertising baking soda or advertising some vaccine. Like, I don't want to, that's not my situation. I don't want to do that. And so it's difficult. I find myself in a very difficult place, but I'm so young, but I'm so outside, or I want to be outside. I'm sort of like anti everything. I'm like the ultimate anti guy.
Yeah, because none of it works.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There's no, you know, when I started in this industry.
When was that, by the way? When did you start out?
I started auditioning in 2000, I want to say 2003 or 2004. I moved down here, I think, in 2005. And I came in right at the very, very end of the old paradigm. Like, the end of what movies used to be, that golden era from like
80s and 90s. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like just the way that the industry was set up. There was a pretty clear ladder for any you know, if you wanted to be an editor, there was a clear way to make it in that line of work. If you wanted to be a gaffer, if you wanted to be an actor, if you wanted to be, there were pretty. You know, you started here, you did this, you did that, you did that. If you had some persistence and some talent and some decent reps or whatever, you know, it was you had a decent shot. That system is totally different at this point. And in 2008, we had this same structure that started to change and collapse, and the whole ladder started going backwards, and everybody was like, "Oh my God!" And we're now at this point where you're coming in, the new young people are coming in and going, "This doesn't work. This is dead ends everywhere. There has to be a way for this to work."
Especially when like filmmakers like Greta Gerwig, you know, she's making this new Narnia movie. Netflix doesn't even want to put it in the fucking theater. It's like this. We got this like really like quality filmmaker like clawing her way into the theater with the biggest company ever. Like it's not compatible. It's not computable.
Yeah, it doesn't. Something's broken. It doesn't make sense. My bet, and this is why I started IndeeHub, is that we just have to, let's just align the incentives. The big companies.
And you saw it. Let me. I'm sorry to interrupt. You saw it crumbling in 2003. Is that what you're saying? You saw it changing in 2004.
It really started in 2008.
Okay.
So it took 2 or 3 years for me to really recognize it, but looking back, it's 2008. So I have a spiel on this. I'll give you and your audience. Like, if these 3 things happen simultaneously in any industry, that industry is probably going to implode, and it's probably either it's dead or it's going to be rebuilt somehow. So in 2008, three things happened simultaneously. You got politics, technology, and economics. So in 2008, there was a writer's strike. The whole TV industry was shut down. Canon released the 5D Mark II in 2008. And for anybody who was around back then, they understand how big of a deal and how much of a game changer that camera was for independent production. Now, there were other technological advances, of course. The internet was getting faster. You could throw Final Cut in there. YouTube was just becoming a big thing. But really, 5D Mark II is kind of the thing. And then you had the economic collapse. All three of those things happened in 2008. The industry imploded, and it took 15 years to build back to what it is now. We're going through the same thing again right now. The politics, you've got multiple strikes. The people who are working in the industry are not happy with the structure of the business. It doesn't work anymore. The technology in this case, in my opinion, is the payments infrastructure. That's the big difference. And then, of course, you have just the global economy, COVID, that entire thing. So those three things, bam, right on cue, another 15 years, whatever it was, we're in the middle of that transition again. So
did other people around you recognize that change as well? Or like were people sort of like sticking their heads in the sand and not wanting to acknowledge change in the industry?
It's a really good question.
Because you were an actor, right? That was mainly what you were doing.
Yeah, I was totally focused on acting. This is actually the thing. These are the events that sort of pulled me out of the acting cave I was in to like start to develop some semblance of a respect for the business side of filmmaking. When I got here, I had a unique opportunity. I had really good reps, I had a really good manager and really good agents. And like very, very quickly, I started working. I got my first union job within 6 months of being here that paid a shitload of money. I booked my first commercial in 3 months. I was doing plays. I started working very, very quickly, and I was in big rooms. I was in big rooms for big movies and big auditions, relatively inexperienced and super, super young. That ladder worked. That structure worked. 2008 hit, let's say 2 or 3 years or 4 years goes by, whatever it was. The level, the quality of projects that I was going to audition for was precipitously and continuously worse and worse and worse. And I got to a point, it's like, I didn't come down here to do this kind of shit. I really did not. Like, this is garbage. I'm like, who am I? Like, nobody. I'm fucking nobody. But I got other shit I want to do in my life. I love movies. This is trash. So that's what got me into the production side of things. But it was just a very, very, very different business back then. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can get back to not the same structure, but to the level of if you've got some talent and you've got some ingenuity, you can go make something that can be successful, which is like part of the American dream, right? Like it's merit-based. Mm-hmm. Just go do something that's incredible and see how the market responds. Let's get back to that. Mm-hmm. And I just fundamentally think that that's a payments reality.
It's all payments. Yeah.
I shouldn't say payments. It's finance related. It's incentives. It's financial incentives being aligned correctly.
Were you the only one thinking this? Like, who was influencing your thoughts when you were sort of like waking up? Was it just your own thing, or was it managers speaking to you as well? Like, what was that like?
That's a really good question. I know I didn't answer in the last one. I don't know.
You're good.
I don't think a lot of people were thinking that way.
Right.
I was not getting that advice from reps or like people in the industry. Everyone was really just kind of struggling and freaking out and trying to figure out what the next thing was that was going to make money. I mean, this was the same period of time that
it's almost like Hollywood is focused on shit coins.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's what I hear. Like they just want to focus on what's the next big thing? What are we going to pump? Like,
yeah.
It's just everything is just a pump
we
and
dump.
dump.
Figure out how to do the money. I mean, we were involved. I was involved in some of the earliest YouTube shows. Really? No one would remember them, but
what are they? Tell me.
There was this show called Poor Paul. I was young when we did that, and then
do you mean like YouTube original, or what do you mean?
No, way before there was an original, way before any of this, before anyone knew how any of this was going to work. People would be like, well, you're going to just like do a show, like just like put it on YouTube? Because YouTube at that point was just cat videos and just crazy shit. Like, I don't know, we could like do a web series. Like that was the new word when this all started happening. I was there, like ground zero. My buddy Kevin, he worked on this show that got quite famous at the time called Lonely Girl 15. It was totally scripted, but everybody didn't know if it was real or not. Like it was... People were just trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. The perspective that I got from the finance side of things and the business side of things was completely outside of the industry.
Because you were doing research on the banks and stuff, or like how did that even happen for you?
I had started trying to do my own productions and my own businesses, and you know, like we started shooting a bunch of stuff, and we did this doc, and you know, we were trying to sell that and get things going that way. And so I had a family member who was more business savvy, and he just started like planting little seeds. And I mean, I'm telling you, I had negative respect for the finance side of things, like as an actor, like none, disdain, you know, and not to my benefit, right? Like it took me a long time to rewire my brain and have some appreciation for how important the business side of it is.
Why did you not even care about the business? It's so wild how like you want to make money, like you want to have a house, you want a car, you want this thing to pay for your life, but then you don't care about I think that's hilarious.
I was really ideologically driven as an actor. Right. I was more concerned with the truth. I was more concerned with the experience of it. I was more concerned with doing my job. I everything else, as far as I was concerned, was going to take care of itself as long as I focused on being really fucking good at this thing. I didn't want to be distracted with anything else. But it became because the system wasn't functioning correct. Like in the old system, I could kind of get away with that because it was functioning correctly. And so a producer would roll around, or a director, and they'd be like, well, this kid's just a fucking great actor. We need great actors. Hire him. It doesn't. And so, you know, you go on set and you're like, I am the most important part of this entire thing. And you have to have that. You have to have that in order to sustain the how difficult it really is to do what you're doing, and how no one on a set really understands what the fuck you're doing and how it works. But when the system stopped functioning, and you start going like, well, I can't. The things that gave me life and excitement and allowed me to like push past the financial piece disappeared. And so all that was there was like, okay, well, I'm not making money and this sucks. It's one thing to be like, I'm not making too much money, but man, I'm having a fucking great time. I'm doing good work. You can sort of, you know, you can tolerate that. But when it's all of this is trash and I'm making no money, you're just like, wait a minute, hold on. Like I gotta like reevaluate here.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, it was 10 years of learning how business worked. I mean, I remember having the thought one time of like, oh, you can just like go out and like you can just like make money. You can just like start a business. Like, how is that possible? Yeah.
No, keep going. I gotta plug in this freaking. I forgot this phone is like about to die.
You're good. It was mind blowing to me that you could just like start a business and like go make money doing stuff. It was so difficult for those few years to you know, from 2008 to 2011, let's say. It was so difficult. Anyway.
That makes sense. No, it's very interesting because like you see actors go on to like produce things, but you never really hear about like their experience with money, their experience with the finance side, or why. Because some people might just put their name as a producer just because they want the credit and just because they want literally just the cred. They just want to be known as a producer.
Yeah.
But you're really interesting where you really took it into your own hands and you actually learned about business and you actually did the research and you have experience with experimenting and failing and succeeding and like just this entire situation that you found yourself in. The entire journey that you've been on is one of learning and growing and expanding yourself and expanding your own consciousness and your own understanding of the business and just being honest with the reality in front of you.
Yeah.
And the reality in front of you was it's not working.
Yep.
And so very few people are willing to admit when the thing in front of them is not real or not or not what it used to be or not what it says it is.
Yep.
And that's a huge wake-up call for you and for a lot of other people, because so many people want to stick their heads in the sand and just say, no, we're going to be fine, we're going to be fine, we're going to be fine, and then they're dead.
Yeah.
It's like it's some people are claiming that like that's sort of what Google is doing, and yeah, they're just gonna, no, we're fine, we have our own thing, and then they're gonna die off. And then I'm forgetting like Sears is an example of that.
So many big businesses that no one ever thought were assailable, gone in a matter of days, years. It's crazy.
Do you think if less people thought like you and me, would Hollywood and movies be done?
Would they be produced?
Would they be done? Like, would it be dead? Would it like because some people are saying like it's dying, and some other people are just like not even talking about the struggle that Hollywood is going through and what movies are going through. Like, is this just a situation of we need to just continue to talk about what the problems are and potential solutions? Because that's what, from my opinion, I think that is the answer. Just continuing to talk about it, reaching out to our friends, just trying to be an example of what a solution can be. Because no one else is going to, like, I don't know. Not everyone is going to think how you think unless you show them how you're thinking. Does that make sense?
Be the change you want to see, right? Like, actions speak louder than words. You get to a certain point in your life and you realize no one is coming to save us. No one is going to fix this. They don't have the incentive to fix it. And how immature of me to sit around and be like, why isn't someone fixing this? Like, this is your calling. This is your job. Do it. There was a great I think Henry Ford said it. He's like, whether you fail or succeed, you spent the same amount of time either way.
Yeah.
You know, and like there have been times in my life where things have been going really well, and times in my life where things were going really poorly. Sitting on my ass and doing nothing is excruciating. Working really, really hard and getting something done is also excruciating. It's like, it's pain either way. So just do the thing that brings some light and joy.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not everybody's path.
Yeah.
That, you know, we all have roles to play in the ecosystem. We all have, you know, like in trading, right? Like you got people who speculate. They play an important role. They provide liquidity. Like you could say, like, oh, they don't provide value. Like they do. Like the whole ecosystem. The flies provide value. Right?
They're taking on a risk,
right?
Like that's what it is.
They're creating depth and, you know. So it's not, for some people. They don't care, right? Like, in other words, to try to answer the question, it's like, yeah, the industry would be done if people like you and I didn't say no. That this could be something different and better. But that's always been true throughout all of time, forever.
Right.
Right. There's always some small group of people who are like, wait a minute. Like, hold on. This is totally fucked. Like, we need to, like, this could be so much better. And they go through this, you know, like the United States, the birth of America. They were like, hold on. Like, this is fucked.
Yeah.
And it was excruciating.
Don't you guys think England's fucking us?
Yeah, like this is not right, dude. So I don't know. For me, it was like, did I become Matt Damon? No. Like, but that, I look at it now. My wife was an actress for a long time too, and so we get to share in that story. And she had a very similar story up to that exact same time period. She'd been acting her whole life. She booked a show. She had a recurring on this show, and then the writer's strike hit in 2008, and she was like, "I'm fucking done.
Wow,
fuck this."
What show? Do you mind if I ask? What show?
I honestly don't even know. I don't even remember. They canceled it.
Wow.
It was out. You know, she had multiple episodes. She did a bunch of other stuff, commercials and indies and things like that.
Right.
What was my point? Was getting to something with that.
She saw the same thing you saw in that same time period. She was done. The industry was over, or the industry was changing, or something needed to change.
Poof, gone. It'll come back.
Bad interviewer. I'm sorry.
No, that's bad talker. Like, in other words, we both look at each other now and go, what if I had been as successful as I was, as I wanted to be, or as hard as I was working to be in the industry the way that it is now? And I go, pretty much unequivocally, like, I'm so glad that I didn't. I don't think that I could have meshed with the way that the industry is now with who I am as a person. it would not have been what I wanted it to be and the reasons why I got into it in the first place. And that's just the truth of it. Like, to your point about the truth, like, just look at it for what it is. And I go, you know what? It's hard to say, but I don't, maybe people say it's cope, but I don't, it wasn't meant to be. It wouldn't have worked. They're diametrically opposed frequencies. It would have been super dissonant. So my role was to go do all of the things that I did and learn the things that I needed to learn. I started the early part of my life and career as an artist, and then I got into the business side of things, and now I'm combining those with this platform, and I'm taking my love of movies and my understanding of how important, you know, markets are and energy is, and hopefully we can redesign something here that I just want to be in service of, and I want to have helped in the progression of consciousness in some way, in a less entropic version of the world. Going back to your question about like the most impactful movies, I want other people to be able to experience that so that they can continue to propagate good throughout the world. And I happen to think that this is the best medium to do that. And it's the only one I really know anything about anyway. So you know, you just like, you have to be all in. Yeah. Well, I can't, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to do anything else.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
I know. I've been thinking long and hard about that too, because I've been thinking about just during the whole pandemic. I've been looking at the reality of things, looking at the streamers, looking at Hollywood, and really asking myself, like, do I want to make movies? Do I want to make a movie? Like, is that what I want? Do I just want to make one movie, or do I want to really make movies? And I there's zero instinct in me to not make a movie, and I'm like, fuck, like because I could easily say like, yeah, it just wasn't for me, you know, like.
And what a relief that would be.
Yeah,
to be honest,
a huge relief.
Like if I could just, if the truth was, I don't really care, and I'm totally happy doing something else. Like, dude, I would have left so long ago. Yeah. And it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But that's not the truth.
It's not the truth. And it's like, it'd be so easy to just say, fuck California. It's not, the state sucks. The system sucks. It's not working. It's over. It's done. And I'm just like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that by any means. And I feel crazy for admitting that, like, no, there's like, movies still have a shot. Movies still have it. Like,
Zuby put out this tweet the other day. He was like, basically, I think that the golden era of every art form has already passed.
Oh, I saw that. I called him out on that.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about
You're full
that.
of shit.
I mean, I hear his point.
Yeah.
For where we're at now. But as a Bitcoiner, you know, like, let's say we get into let's say we really, all of the shit happens that we think could happen. Bitcoin becomes the global unit of account, and we enter maybe the most prosperous period, probably the most prosperous period in all of human history for the next 500 years, like whatever.
Yeah.
I think that to suggest that master works are done, no way.
Yeah. What's Zuby even making? Wasn't he making music for a minute?
Yeah, he's doing rap or whatever.
But he's not anymore. Right? Like, what's he creating?
Podcaster.
Yeah, like, what's he creating, right? Because, I'm this guy who, I can see his point, but I'm just like, wait, what do you, like, only if you're not creating, you think that. Like, that's really wild to even say, like, every art form is, like, peaked. Like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
Like, people are still building buildings.
I think that really is a symptom. That's a symptom of fiat. He's looking at the system as it is right now, and he's going, kind of like we were talking about earlier, he's just trying to be truthful about it from where he sees it. See, I see it from a different perspective, but from where he's sitting, he's going, the way that things are right now, there's absolutely no way that we're ever going to see another Michelangelo.
Yeah.
That we're ever going to see, a Da Vinci. That we're going to see, and in this, if this paradigm was the only paradigm from here on out, I would agree with him.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the only paradigm from here on out. Like, it's just not.
It's not true.
It's not true. You know what? There's what's the stat on geniuses? There's kind of a fixed amount. There's a ratio, roughly speaking, of geniuses all over the world. So there should be more geniuses now than there have ever been at any point in all of human history. Why aren't they capable of whipping shit up in society right now? That is a symptom of the financial structure that we're in, because the financial structure that we're in is designed to enslave us. And
We have the power to break free of that.
we do now.
Yeah.
We do now. This is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that wasn't, certainly not in the digital age, was not really possible before. Now, again, like this doesn't, I'm not trying to put forth some naive utopia where human beings, we're flawed, we're going to have problems. It's like, that's just the reality. But like, if you're looking at it from a Maslow's hierarchy perspective, like Bitcoin can solve a lot of these like base layer things and get us onto the more important shit like actualization. And so, you know, if human beings can coordinate correctly at scale, you can start to take all of these geniuses and put them to work. And we should see that in the film industry. We should see that in movies. We should see people bringing things forth that none of us have ever thought of or dreamed were possible. And of course that's possible because everything's always changing anyway. The context is changing, so doesn't mean the art has peaked. There's always something new to be done and a new way to do it.
Yeah. So what is okay? So we're recording this at the end of 2024. It's November 1st.
Wow.
What does 2025 look like for you and IndeeHub? Like, what is this? What does the near future for IndeeHub look like, and what are you trying to build in the near future?
The near future is we need to get the word out for filmmakers specifically. We need to build this community with filmmakers first and foremost. We need shorts. We need to get as many short films onto this platform as we can. There is no market for shorts. We want to become the place where the market's at. I need to be talking to filmmakers. I need to be working with filmmakers, and I need them to get their movies onto the platform as quickly as possible. The next 12 to 18 months, frankly, is going to be a lot of that. We need to build out the library. We need to build out the community. We need to start educating and changing expectations. Then we need to start working on the marketing piece and get filmmakers to start figuring out how we can bring their audiences over here. But the short term is like a huddle with the industry. Like, come on over here. We're doing this thing. We need your help. So that's the short version.
Interesting. I think, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I've been doing this podcast for a couple of years. The entire vision for this has been, I'm a filmmaker who has a podcast. I'm a podcaster who makes movies. Like, this is it. This is it. So I'm not sure if everyone should have a podcast. Like, everyone already does have a podcast, but
30 years ago, if you had told everybody, like, in the future, you're all going to have your own talk show.
yeah,
like,
what? Are you talking? Like, that's insane to say.
Here we are.
Yeah, but this is it. Like, this is reality. But I think I was going to ask you about the marketing piece as well. Like, is there a different thing for marketing, or is it really just like going on different podcasts and just starting your own podcast and having the initiative with your own social media? Is it really just that?
I think you have to at this point. You know, back in the day, the way the structure was that the studio was doing the marketing.
Yeah,
right?
And they would put you on the talk show. They would put you, and on the radio show and all that.
Exactly. Like, you got to focus on your job. You were a great actor. They paraded you around. They marketed it. They paid for all the advertising. They set up all the shit. They had really, really talented people doing all of that. This is really, we're not there anymore. And we're in this transitionary period. So you have to be able to build an audience. You have to be able to capture that audience. You have to be able to communicate with that audience. I hope that IndeeHub can play a pivotal role and an instrumental role in getting filmmakers in touch with their audiences and in communication with their audiences. We can't do the marketing. We're not going to be buying billboards for people's movies. We're not a distribution company. But I think that the difference that IndeeHub has is that you can create a direct financial incentive to go find an influencer, or if you have an audience yourself, to put this out onto social media and to bring the audience over to where your work is at. You can plug that person directly onto the cap table, and they can start getting paid for every second that those people are watching that movie. That is a big fucking change from how things work.
And that's the payment splits, right? Because that's the biggest. We didn't even talk about that. The payment splits, like that's the real innovation with podcasting 2.0, with IndeeHub. When it comes to royalties and licensing, the real innovation when it comes to using Bitcoin is you can put a split for each person who helped you make that and promote that. So me as a director, I can just give myself 10%. I can give Zach another 10%. I can give someone who did maybe just a little bit less work 5%. Like anyone can have a split, and it's up to you, up to that group to figure out what those splits are. And those splits are in perpetuity. Like they are forever. And that's like bigger than a contract, because that like that goes beyond banks. That goes beyond streamers, which I think is, it's always been the innovation. It's why I wanted to do a podcast. It's why I wanted my podcast to be aligned with podcasting 2.0 tech, because of just the splits and the payments. I'm giving you a split on this podcast. I'm gonna get your lightning, and you're gonna get whatever you want, like 50%, 15, 30, whatever you want. I'm gonna give it to you. And
100%, obviously.
Clearly, let's do it. I'll do negative 5%.
Sweet.
You get 104.
You owe me money.
But that's the real innovation, and that is like, that's a future thing. Like that's future. Like that's some. I in my head, I have America Plus is like a verb. Like that, like splits on my movie is so America Plus. Like that's so, that's some future shit.
Yeah.
And I love that, man. I freaking love that. And I think that's the real key when it comes to communicating what's possible. When you tell someone like, you're going to have a split of the profits of this, and you're going to have this forever. Like, period.
You go do, if you're a talented young kid or whoever, you know, it like, in the YouTube days, when YouTube was starting, we were all trying to figure out what was going on. You know, we had talent, we had energy, we had equipment, we had time. If we could have just had a platform where we could put it up in a marketplace and see how it responded financially, it would have been a game changer.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you can go produce a short film for $1,000 or $10,000 or $20,000, and you can make that money back, and you can start to build that confidence and build that skill and build an actual business based on audiences responding positively, that's a big deal. And, you know, you're 19 or 20, you're trying to tell your cinematographer, hey, I'll give you 10% of whatever the short film makes. You don't know how to even, A, you don't know how to monetize it. B, you don't know how to even really do a split. Now you're going to like check my account and like do a deposit, and I gotta like, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't know anything.
You like, it's not happening.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not happening. You know, in my opinion, it is the game changer. You know, is IndeeHub ready right now to take on an independent film that had a budget of $1 million? And can we justify saying, hey, you're probably gonna make your money back? No, like we're not there yet. We need to start with the shorts, and we need to start with people who are motivated and inspired and are going to go iterate and work and work and work, who can build their audience. If you can start to do that, and you can start to develop a relationship with your audience, and you can start to develop a little bit of financial momentum, it's like the difference between life and death. And you could start, you know, my vision for IndeeHub is that you get some young kid on there who starts it up when they're 15 or 16. They got their camera, they're doing whatever, they're learning how to edit in high school. You put up one good movie on IndeeHub, and then 20 or 25 years later, you're winning awards. You're a huge director. You're a huge actor. Whatever. You're a huge cinematographer. Why not? Like, why can't there be a progression and a ladder in that way? That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah.
So anybody who's listening to this, who's in that world, like, I encourage you, come over here, put your work on here, put your short film on here, iterate, figure out how to build your audience. And then just get to work. Just make movies. Your job is to make movies. Just make movies.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm trying to help you. Just make movies. I want to see more movies being made by more talented people all of the time. That's what I want.
Yeah. Are you going to be producing movies yourself, or are you going to be just like in charge of IndeeHub? Like, what's that like for you?
I mean, the second I can get back into the driver's seat on making some movies, I will. But that won't be for quite some time.
Right.
You know, I really I got to commit to this. I got to make sure that this works. And that's going to take all of my time and attention and effort. You know, honestly, theater is where my heart's at.
Okay.
I love theater. I could sit in a theater all day and rehearse and perform. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
I'll be back. I'll be back to that. I'll be back to making movies. But for the foreseeable future, this is where all of my attention and energy and effort are going, and I'm doing everything that I can to support the people who are still out there doing that.
That's dope, dude.
Thanks. Thank you.
How much time do you have left? Do you have
Plenty of time. Let's
plenty
go
of time?
for it. Yeah.
Dope, dude. What other movies do you like? What's like a movie that you always go to?
Let me pee. Well, that's a good spot for a break, and then we'll keep it going.
Yeah, we'll pause it. We'll pause it right now. We'll pause it. You're good.
Swing.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
Back from that. Yeah. What movies do you like? What's like a movie that you always watch, and like, does it like inspire you, or like, what are you getting from, like, what do you want to get from a movie?
Excellent question. So it sucks to admit, but I've been so
You only watch German expressionist movies.
I just watch YouTube all day. No.
That's me.
No, I've been so disheartened by the industry for the last 10 years that I really have unfortunately I have not found it to be like a great use of my time.
Yeah,
Because so much of it is just garbage.
I can see that. No, I agree with that.
You know, and whereas before I would just be devouring great movies. And look, part of that is I'm at a totally different age. I'm married. I'm building a business. There's only so much time in a day.
You've probably already seen all the good movies.
You know, and so occasionally someone will be like, "You got to watch this. You got to watch that." Like, okay, like, you know, it's rare at this point. That doesn't mean I'm not going back to that. It's just that's kind of where I'm at. So that being said, like a lot of the stuff that I would say is, you know, we're going to talk about older stuff. There was this period, probably right around, memory gets a little hazy here, but probably around the time Game of Thrones came out originally. I don't remember even when that even was. When did the first Game of Thrones come out?
I think it came out in 2008, which I didn't believe, but it did.
Okay.
Which is a wild time in time.
Perfect example. That's when television started, ironically, a totally new renaissance. The movie,
Same with Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, it started in 2008 as well.
exactly, the amount of good television that was propagated throughout those periods was mind blowing. Movies got really terrible, but they brought the theatrical style and quality to episodic content. I will say this: True Detective season 1
Oh, yeah.
is probably the best thing that's ever been put on celluloid, in my opinion.
Was it put on celluloid?
It was shot on film.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's its own thing. We talk about shooting on film. The film is important. That new topic. We'll go there later.
Yeah.
The thing about True Detective, it took me a while in my life to like accept the fact that some people just watch movies because they want to just not think about shit. Like literally just want to be entertained. That's not why I watch movies. I watch movies to be challenged,
Yes.
to be inspired,
Yes.
to feel something, to learn something. Like when I'm watching a movie, like my wife will be like, "You want to watch a movie?" You know, she just wants to hang out, and I'm like, "No, I don't watch movies to hang out."
Yeah.
Like I used to, you know, when I was younger, I used to stand up. I had my monitor I had my TV put on a stand height directly at eye level, and I would stand up and watch movies because I was so actively engaged in the whole process. It's not relaxing for me at all.
Yeah.
And then as I got more into production, I started to learn more about how all of that worked. I started to get good at editing. I started to get good at shooting, at cinematography, at lighting. You know, the acting had already ruined a lot of it for me, but then all of that just kind of like it was not a relaxing experience. So I really like when the stuff was good, it was there just, you can't get any better. And True Detective for me was that.
Yeah.
It was like the culmination of every single aspect of that series. 2 and 3, they don't count. They're literally, it's nonsense. It was a masterpiece at every level. The acting, the writing, the cinematography, the score, the music, the composition, like all of it. Masterpiece. And the thing about True Detective that I liked is that a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's so dark. It's so dark. Like that is one of the most hopeful, positive, least cynical things that has ever been produced. But you have to get through the darkness of it to appreciate that final line in the series, which is just fucking mind-blowing. It used to be that there was only darkness. Seems to me the light is winning. Holy fuck.
That's real. That's some real universe shit.
So hardcore. And for him to build this story, to get to that final, it was I haven't talked about this show in a while, but I have never in my life finished a show and been like, that ending was perfect.
Really? Not even Breaking Bad?
No.
Wow.
No. The end of Breaking Bad was insane. It was like, how are they gonna wrap this up? There's just a fucking massive shootout. Like it was just insane. But it was like, it was a masterpiece because the whole thing had gotten to this one point, this one idea. I want to prove that this idea is right, and that is that things aren't fucked up. Like the good side is winning.
That's powerful.
It was so fucking powerful when I saw that. I was just like, I literally was standing there, like arms crossed, like just crying. It was so well done. And so
you're the meme of the dad standing in front of the TV, like you're that guy.
That's how I used to watch stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And so what am I looking for when I'm watching something? I'm looking for that. I'm looking for energy. I'm trying to tap into some kind of source power that I can use to like motivate me and push me throughout the day and give me some orientation that's worth running towards.
I felt that way when I was younger watching Dead Poet Society.
Such a good
Like,
fucking movie.
when they stand up on the desks and it's like, oh my God, like that's, I literally, when I was a kid, like I'm crying watching it. I'm in high school and I'm just like, Captain, my captain. Like, and I think it was like right when Robin Williams had died too. And I was like every time somebody died, I would just like go into like, I would just binge all their stuff. And that's been like the thing that's pissed me off while being alive. Like, I only know when someone is so good. I only saw 10 Things I Hate About You after I saw The Dark Knight. Like, I only know how good Heath Ledger is after he died. And it's like, and then it seems like I'm the only one who cares about like their last thing. Cause like, I remember like loving Heath Ledger's last movie, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. And like, do you know about that?
No.
Oh yeah. So that was, yeah. So when Heath Ledger died in 2008, he was filming a movie with Terry Gilliam. And it was this super fantasy movie. There's this theater troupe, and it's with Andrew Garfield and Christopher Plummer, and it's this like sort of like homeless theater troupe, and they're going around London, and they're poor, and they're just like sort of like scamming people, and people aren't respecting them, and then they find this dead guy hanging underneath the bridge, and it's Heath Ledger, and it's a wild story, and but he died in the middle of that, and I remember loving that movie, but nobody saw it. And I've always sort of like felt like singled out by like loving these movies that no one else does. Like I loved Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Like everyone was like shitting on it, but I feel inspired when I watch that movie. I feel like I'm looking for inspiration.
Yeah,
I want to get hyped up. So like I'll watch Megalopolis and Top Gun Maverick. Like those two, like that's a real good duo for me. Like I'm gonna beat the enemy. We're gonna do it.
Fucking Friday, let's go.
Exactly. And I just love. I remember even like being obsessed with Forrest Gump because like just like being. I want to fell in love with history. I fell in love with like the idea of an adventure through that sort of a lifetime. Like I've always loved these, like even Catch Me If You Can. I would like Forrest Gump, Catch Me If You Can, Dead Poet Society, anything with Heath Ledger. Like these are like things that I find inspiring and like hopeful and love and life. And it's like these things are, I've always like hovered around these things. It's always been very interesting to me. And when I saw Megalopolis, I didn't feel the emotions per se, but I could see the vision, and I could see how much Coppola felt, how much love and how much inspiration Coppola felt for this idea for a better society, for a better future. And for me and myself, as just a consumer of movies, I'm always looking to be inspired for a new idea. And there's very few movies like that.
For tell me what you think here. We're early IndeeHub days, but I think I'm going to put into some marketing material. I had the realization there's two ways to get an audience. You can captivate or you can capture. And we're in the capture phase of it right now, and we need to get back to the captivate. The captivate is a willing exchange of energy.
Who's capturing? Marvel? Like Disney? Like, what do you mean by
All
capturing?
the streaming services, right?
Everything.
YouTube. We're capturing your attention. We're forcing you into this pin, and we're moving you around in ways that make us money and take away your time.
We're dragging you through our algorithm.
Exactly. It's not a mutually beneficial relationship. I mean, that's not... I understand that's absurd. There's a lot of use to YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm not like...
But ultimately, that's what it is.
Exactly. You're in their little device, right? We need to get people paying for things because they're captivated by them.
By the emotion.
Like, of course, we don't want to pay for most of the shit on YouTube. It's trash.
Yeah.
Like,
it is trash.
It's fucking trash.
There's no way I'm going to pay for Mr. Beast.
Right.
Even though I might be entertained
Right.
by something he does. But I would much rather pay for a Robin Williams movie.
Yes.
Any sort of Chris Nolan movie, anything like that, because there's so much more love into that.
You're captivated, right?
Yep.
There's something that's you're getting something in exchange for the $10 or $5 or whatever. It's totally fucking worth it. Anyway,
you got to watch
I totally
Heath Ledger's.
agree.
You got to watch Heath Ledger's last movie because he died in the middle of filming, and so when that happens, it's like, oh no, the movie's done. But they recasted him with 3 actors:
Oh wow.
Jude Law.
I kind of remember this now.
Yeah, it was Jude Law. It was Johnny Depp and Colin Farrell.
Wow.
They all took and they rewrote the script. They had to change it for it to make sense, but they were all like trying to capture that essence, trying to capture what Heath was able to captivate with his performances.
Yeah.
And it was so intriguing to me as a child. That was 2009 when that came out, and I was so obsessed with that idea, and I could like feel it because that movie's about it's very like ethereal. Like there's like Christopher Plummer, he makes a deal with the devil, and he's using Heath Ledger to make that deal happen. And it's very interesting like that. It's very mystical and very dark as well. But to see the love, to see like the essence of that actor try to come forward through these other actors, I was so inspired by because oh, that's my girlfriend. What up, Shannon?
Hi.
This is Zack Mahoney.
Nice to meet you.
Shannon works with dogs.
Oh, nice.
She's obsessed with animals. We have a cat. I think he's asleep, Shan. Just so you know, if you don't see the cat.
I saw the cat bowl. I was wondering where the cat was.
But I've always been inspired by something like that, like just capturing an essence, capturing this inspiring thing within movies. So I forgot where I was trying to go with that, but
Yeah, we were talking about like why, like what are we looking for out of a movie?
yeah. So just I want to be inspired. I want to think about something new. I want to think about life. I want to think about the expansion of life.
Yeah.
Like when I think about Forrest Gump, it's sort of like there's never going to be another Forrest Gump, but it's almost like everyone's life is Forrest Gump. Like you're going through a war, you're going through a heartbreak, you're going through like something that you don't really understand.
These universal human experiences that these geniuses can articulate and express in a unique way. They trick us into our own humanity.
Yeah.
You know, it's a way to like get around the ego and be like, oh yeah, we all experience these
That's
things.
a really interesting. Movies get us around the ego. That's so wild. That's true too. Because some characters are so ego, and you hate that. You hate the ego guy. You hate him, and it's like you don't want to like Tom Cruise in Top Gun because he's cocky. But then it's like, then he gets around it. Like there's a journey.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can identify that, and then you can like forgive that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, dude.
I mean, I was thinking about this the other day in a totally different context, but it's like, you know, part of the, you know, being an actor, you know, generally speaking, you want to play the hero, you want to play the good guy, you want to be but but playing the role of the bad guy is
necessary.
a tremendous honor.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like, are you evil? No, of course not. You're tapping into it for the service of the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
Those roles are super important.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I immediately, I mean, the biggest villain right now is Thanos. Like Josh Brolin as Thanos. Like he is like, they made an iconic villain with Infinity War with Thanos. Like that's, and people don't view Thanos as evil. He kills half the universe, but he's literally justified through his own way of being and thinking. And he's a fucked up father. He kidnapped and abused these these girls. But somehow, some way, there's like you still understand him, and you can still see how he fits in, and it's very interesting how things like that happen, and the actor is interested in playing something like that. Yeah. You know, people, you know, Josh Brolin doesn't want to be the hero all the time. He wants to, like he was Cable in Deadpool. He's like some angry hero, but then like, you know, Thanos is so much more of a interesting character. Because he has a motive, because he has a real service to the greater good of the movie.
There's depth and dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, we had this saying as an actor, it's like you can't play disconnected disconnectedly.
Yeah.
You can't be the surface level version. Like you can't play a Nazi.
Mm-hmm. And not like curl when you say the line. Like when you say the line as a Nazi, you need to like actually like try to like.
Yeah, like
puff
exactly,
your chest up.
Like how do you play a scene where they treat humans as if they're trash and do it authentically?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't play that scene like I'm playing this as an evil person.
No,
you can. We call it bad acting. This is garbage.
No.
You have to substitute it, and you say like, oh, that I am going to treat this human being as if it's a chair. Like, we'll just fucking throw it out, like burn it. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't. So my point about, you know, the evil characters that we fall in love with is because they're not playing evil. Mm-hmm. They're playing a flawed human being who's going about their life. The undercurrent is that they're doing it with love, but they're misguided.
Yes.
We all relate to that.
Yes.
We all completely understand that. You know, like we want someone to be able to redeem themselves or to have redemption in spite of the fact that they're flawed. Mm-hmm. But you can't play it. This is just acting talk, but you can't play a flawed person flawedly.
Yeah,
like,
no, you can't.
I'm the most flawed. Like this is nonsense, you know?
It is nonsense. Yeah. What do you think of, okay, so here's a take that I have on Spielberg. I'm not sure if anyone agrees with me, but I have
Smash that like button.
I have zero.
Send those sats.
Please. I have zero nostalgia and love for Spielberg's fantasy movies. I literally...
Like what? Which ones?
I'm talking about his fantasy movies. I'm talking about Indiana Jones. I'm talking about Jurassic Park. I have no love for Spielberg's fantasies. I only like and enjoy and go back to Spielberg's dramas for some reason. And I have this theory within my own self, and I feel like this goes for like cinematic culture as well. 2008 was such a big year. It's like a changing year for everything. 2008, Iron Man, Dark Knight, Indiana Jones 4. And I always have felt like that was like one of my first, that was my first Spielberg movie. And I never got into, like I didn't want to watch Indiana Jones after I saw Crystal Skull. I was like a part of the hype. Like
well, you got lied to.
I got lied to. I forced myself to be hyped up, and then I was lied to about how such a.
I mean, that movie sucked, didn't it? Like, if I remember correctly, Crystal Skull.
It did suck. No, it was no good. I mean, sort of because of George Lucas. He had a bad idea. It was George Lucas who had the idea with the aliens, but I was 11 years old and I just wasn't into it. And then I can see the quality of the fantasy movies. Like I can see the quality of Indiana Jones and the cinematography, and I know that he tapped into something with Jurassic Park, and like he really sweeps you up. But I just have zero. Like I'm more interested in Saving Private Ryan, Catch Me If You Can, War Horse. I'm more interested in Lincoln than I am Indiana Jones. I don't know why. I'm not sure. I feel like an odd thumb out. Like no one else agrees with me. People in your generation won't agree with me because I'm sure you grew up with some fantasy Spielberg. Like I'm sure you have sort of nostalgia, or you have like.
No, I think that if you really drill down and you ask people, You just have to ask the question differently. You can't say like, what's your favorite movie? Because a lot of times people are going to be like, what movie did I have the most fun watching? Or what movie like blew my fucking mind? Like Jurassic Park, when it came out, was unprecedented.
Yeah.
The context of the time, it blew people's fucking minds.
And I wasn't around for that.
You didn't have the context.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that Jurassic Park was the movie that affected them the most. Almost always, if you really get into like Spielberg, they're gonna be like, oh, Schindler's List.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
it's, you know,
That's his best movie.
Lincoln, Schindler's List, Private Ryan, whatever. So I think you're being unfair to yourself. You're not isolated in that opinion, I don't think. It's just a different question. Just ask a more specific question.
Right.
And I think most people generally would agree with you. What movie affected you the most? Like most people are going to be, if they're honest with themselves, they're going to be like, yeah, it was Schindler's List. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, Private Ryan. No one had ever done. It's kind of like expected. It's like the norm today. But dude, for anybody who's young, when Saving Private Ryan came out, that had never
been done before.
That 30 minutes on the beach, that movie broke every rule that existed for war movies, violence, realism. It was completely unprecedented. People were fucking speechless in the movie theater after watching that scene. I mean, they were fucking affected. People were shaking. They'd never seen anything like that. That's the problem with movies. They're so contextual. What came before it, societally, what came after. But anyway, I'm on a rant. I think more people would agree with you than you give yourself credit for. I think you're right.
Yeah. I always found that interesting, and I wasn't sure if that was like even accurate to think, because you always see like people like Spielberg will be remembered because of Indiana Jones and Jaws and these fantasies, and people will put Schindler's List up as like the best movie, but he's like remembered for the other stuff, for the Jurassic Park. It's like the culture loves him for Jurassic Park. Filmmakers love him for Schindler's List. But like ultimately, it's the fantasy that sort of like leads everything.
Yeah.
And I always just found that interesting, because I've been more interested in real life stuff, or something that tries to convey real life.
Well, we just got done watching the World Series, right? Like everybody's going to remember the Grand Slam, the walk-off Grand Slam in the first game, because it's exciting and it's spectacular and it had never been done before. Nobody's going to be like, man, there was like a series of 45 pitches where this pitcher was really playing a chess match with this guy that, he had been in a battle with 3 seasons prior. Like no.
Yeah, no one cares about that.
But objectively, like that battle is that those grinds, that masterful execution of something. It's the thing that gives the exciting part a foundation.
Yeah.
And it's just, no, people aren't in the weeds, right? Like we're in the weeds. It's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I was a tour guide at Warner Brothers, so I was like as deep in the weeds as you can with like nerd culture and people. And I think that's sort of what I've been like reacting to. Just like all the tour guides love Jurassic Park, and like I'll watch it, sure, but I'm not obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And like tour guides are obsessed with these things.
Yeah.
And I just always had a different perspective, and it was very interesting like that. Or I would watch. I haven't seen it, but I was always willing to talk about Roads to Perdition. That filmed at Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
That's Spielberg.
Yeah.
I think it's Spielberg. Maybe it's not. Or I should say,
I think Spielberg did Road to Perdition.
Over AI.
Yeah.
Over, because there's this one backlot set that both those movies filmed on. So I was always willing to talk about this one movie over this fantasy movie because of my own preference.
I think you could go back into Jurassic Park without the expectation of Spielberg.
Yeah.
And go into it like...
That's the real fuck thing. It's always Spielberg. It's like, I'm sorry, like I just don't
Just
care
go
anymore.
into it with musicality, appreciation of the musicality, of the tempo, of the timing, of the tension and the discovery of pace and tempo. Then you're like, okay.
Because then I feel vindicated when a movie like Ready Player One comes out and it's like, oh, he's really just like, he's just repeating what he did. And then people are like, want to get hyped up because, oh, dude, did you see the dinosaur in Ready Player One? It's like, it's not that exciting. I don't know what to tell you. I don't care. I care about Lincoln. I care about I care about him calling Daniel Day-Lewis Lincoln on set. Like I care about him actually doing it and being authentic with it. Like I care more about him using candles on the set than using some sort of other lighting for the camera in Indiana Jones. Like I don't know why I feel that way, but I just do. Well, what do you think about Coppola? Do you think Coppola still has it? Did you see Megalopolis?
I haven't seen it yet. It's on the list.
I think you would like it. What you've explained to me, you would enjoy Megalopolis. You might laugh at parts. You might think some parts are ridiculous, but ultimately, I think it's in the vein of what you're looking for.
I'm sure I would. I mean, the dude's a master. Maybe it's not the pinnacle of his artistic endeavors, but you have to respect.
You have to
like the talent. Sandy Meisner has this quote: "Your talent lies in your choices." When I'm watching a movie, I'm looking for specific choices, whether sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. But I have gotten to a point where I respect somebody trying something that's really specific. Again, like if it's a dud, I clap because someone had the courage to stand up and do the thing in the first place. That's why I clap.
Yes.
That deserves respect and honor. And
that's why I like Joker too. It's a fucking musical with a murderer. And like it's actually like it's weird, it's wonky, and like Megalopolis is the same way. Like I'm willing to applaud just the sheer act of going for it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm inspired by. Like it's what I want to do as well, even though these movies made no money.
Yeah.
I'm inspired by the flops.
So that's, it's easy to talk shit on the sidelines. It's easy for me to go to an NFL game and be like, I can't believe you missed it. I can't. You suck.
Yeah.
like, dude, I'm not on the field.
Yeah. That's what so much of the audience
idea
is.
How hard that shit is.
So much of the audience is Monday morning quarterbacking.
Yeah.
It's really strange to me.
It's a lot of shit talking. It's easy to talk shit.
But yeah, you should watch it.
Yeah.
Whenever it's on streaming, you should check it out. If it's still in theater, I mean, I would just give Coppola the money.
Yeah.
Just really go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Megalopolis, it's wild.
Yeah. I've seen reviews, and usually when a movie has like usually there's like a distribution curve, but this one's just like hate, apathy, and love all mixed into one, which usually to me indicates that somebody did something incredibly specific and incredibly skillful.
Yes.
And people just don't understand how to react to it. There's people who aren't in the weeds and who don't make movies or aren't movie nerds or whatever will equate the quality of a movie with whether or not they liked it. I can dislike a certain kind of music and be like, no, this is like, but that dude's a master. Like, this is incredible. It's not the type of music that I enjoy. I can separate. I don't like the thing with whether it was good or not. A lot of people like, if I didn't like it, it wasn't good. That's not true. From a filmmaking perspective, something can be a masterpiece and you can hate it. Those are totally separate realities. And so the reviews I've seen on this kind of say that, like that he really, to me, it seems like a masterpiece because so many people were pissed off and it was so polarizing. You can't do that unless you've done something really, really specific. So it seems like he was going for something very specific.
It was. I mean, he combined Roman history with modern America, and he wanted to make a Roman epic in regards to a Roman epic talking about modern America. Like, that's what it is. And so you got people are named Caesar. People are like Aubrey Plaza's character's name Wow. Her name is Wow. And you got John Voight. Wow. He's this like John Voight's in like a Peter Pan costume for half the movie. And it's just like, it's so silly. And you got
specific.
And Shia LaBeouf is in it. Like, just Shia LaBeouf, just that itself. Like, I'm obsessed with Shia. And he's a wild character. He's just a wild card in the movie. And there's like some political undertones, but they don't go too far with it. It's really about like the world. It was hyper specific, but he mixes in different things from history, from fantasy, and he calls it a fable because it's like it is a fantasy, it is a fable. But I respected it. My first viewing of it, I saw it 3 times. My first viewing, it was on a Thursday night. I think a lot of people were drunk. It was like 10 o'clock at night.
Wasted.
No, for real. And people were like laughing and mocking it, like laughing in a mocking way. And it wasn't like an uncomfortable laughter. like, oh, what did we just see? Well, like, what was it? Was like, this is fucking retarded.
Dumbest shit I've ever seen.
Literally, yeah. And then my second viewing, it was like people were sort of more respectful towards it. People were there's silly parts in the movie. Like objectively, there is comedy in the movie that you should laugh at, and there are some things that are purposefully absurd. And so that second viewing, the audience was more receptive to that, and I was also more willing to laugh as well. Because the first viewing, I was just like I was on the roller coaster for the first time, like, ah! Like I don't know how to react. I'm just like seeing it all for the first time. And then my second time, I'm like, oh, that is funny. Like that's wild that he did that. Like Coppola, like that's cool, dude. And then my third viewing, I just fell in love with it. I was like, wow, this is important. I think it's gonna stand the test of time. Maybe not in terms of like, oh, this movie was so good, but in terms of like, wow, this movie is actually impactful. Like the ideas that it brings forward, just this concept. Because Adam Driver's whole thing in the movie is like he wants to build a better world. He wants to build a better Rome, and the old guard doesn't want that. And that's Giancarlo Esposito, Gus from Breaking Bad. He's the mayor, and he's trying to open up a casino in the beginning of the movie. It's gonna bring jobs, and we're gonna have union workers. And Adam Driver comes in, and he's like, to be or not to be, like literally like reciting Shakespeare while talking about his vision for a better city. It's like, damn, like it's so much more deeper than people were ready for.
It sounds like it's a movie, and again, I'm talking out of my ass, haven't seen it, but it sounds like it's a movie that
we're gonna watch it right now.
Live viewing. It's one of those movies that probably won't be appreciated until 20 years after.
Yeah. Until America's fallen.
Until people or is in the middle of being reborn, right? This is really where we're at right now.
Yes.
And Coppola, right? Like you got a master of his craft and a dude who's been around a long time and seen a lot of shit. He's doing something that probably people will appreciate who have gone through a little bit more of the shit that he's seen. Mm-hmm. So you take millennials and get them to maybe 60 years old. Mm-hmm. Once we go through this, whatever this crazy transition is, might be able to look back on a movie like this and be like, oh wow, that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that is what will happen. That's what I believe. Because it's like, it's still quality. Like it wasn't cheap. It wasn't just thrown together. No. Like it's actually like, it's really quite interesting. And he was willing to, during filming, I know that he was trying to do what they did with the Star Wars shows. He tried using the video wall, but he like got rid of that, and he was like, "It's not working. It's not." He just went to normal green screen effects and stuff like that. So, like, it's just interesting how he was willing to experiment with new technology and like modern technology. And I think the cinematographer was like younger as well, like not working with someone that he had worked with before. So just willing to experiment. I think that's the real thing that I was inspired by. This guy in his late 70s is willing to experiment with a new type of story, and also the choices that they did. They were doing a lot of, because he's into theater. Like he loves directing theater, and all the actors would talk about how they do theater games during rehearsals. And there's takes in the movie where they're actually like doing like a theater game.
Yeah.
And that's like this back and forth between these two characters. It's like, whoa, bro, like no one would do that. Nolan wouldn't do that. Like no one would do that.
The thing is, we used to do that shit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the real problems, in my opinion, of where we're at right now is that movie making became a very like director of photography centric art form after 2008, right?
How pretty is the shot? How pretty can you make it look?
Right.
Yeah.
Can we and we lost directors who used to spend thousands of hours in a theater with actors working on. The whole point is a relationship between human beings. I mean, this is what we're relating to. Mm-hmm. Tempo, blocking, timing, relationship, tension, discovery, timing, all of that is gone. And it was replaced by how can we have a pretty one shot? Here's a close up. Here's a pretty close up. You watch movies now, it's close up, close up, close up, close up, close up. I don't want to see someone in a fucking close up.
Yeah.
I want to see two people reacting to each other, relating to each other in the scene. That's where all of the good juice is at. That's where all of everything we want to see is when two great actors are in relationship with one another in the same frame.
Yeah.
You shouldn't edit unless you have to, or there's some specific point, but it just became this like, well, we're going to stand there and we're going to make this look pretty and we're going to stand there. And then the directors tried to start controlling the actor's job and pacing in the edit. And it's like, this is not effective. I hope that we can, I'm a little bit concerned about this. I hope that good directors can start to get back into the theater, or at least into a classroom where they're in relationship with actors and writers in the same place and they can all hash this out. Because I mean, I watch some stuff these days and I'm like, this is literally like they shot the first rehearsal.
Yeah.
What is going on? And it's just like, they're just churning and burning. Like, how can we get 10 pages done in a day, 15 pages done in a day? Just close up, close up, close up, close up. We'll edit pacing later.
Well, I think that's why you got filmmakers. So before the pandemic at WB, when I was working there, you got it was Joel Cohen. He was doing a Shakespeare movie with Denzel. They were doing Macbeth.
Right.
And a part of me felt like the reason for them doing that was because like there's nothing interesting to do right now. Like let's just go back to Shakespeare. Let's just do the play. Like we just like back to fundamentals. Let's just go back to the fundamental of these characters, of these human beings. Just a simple story, Macbeth, and I'm not sure if anyone really saw that movie, but I mean I did and I liked it. Like it's Macbeth, it's Shakespeare. It's always going to be like quote unquote good. Like it's well done. But I feel like some filmmakers are reacting in that way. Like they want to continue, they want to keep that connection between the human beings and that journey. We're just in a strange state, very strange state. And it's like people are hyped up for Downey Jr. coming back to Marvel, but it's like it's still not. Like he's going to be in front of a green screen. He's not really in front of actors. He might be on the same set with some actors, but it's like it's not really. It's more about Doom. It's more about Marvel. It's more about these things. It's like I remember seeing Heat for the first time. Michael Mann's Heat. I went down to the New Beverly theater, and so that was my first time seeing it ever. Super old film stock. It was like scratchy. I was in the front row. I showed up late, so I was in the front row, and I wasn't ready. My girlfriend was on the very end of the row, and I had to be in the middle of the row, so we didn't even get to see it together.
Terrible.
But I'm watching Heat. And I remember like reading about how much of a big deal it was to have De Niro and Pacino in the same scene, and they're sitting at a table in a cafe. And what you said earlier about two actors being in front of each other, next to each other, like, and creating that energy, like I felt that in Heat. I felt that because those two characters they're in different places in different parts of the movie, and then they finally come together, and that's a big moment, not just from the celebrity actor point of view, but from the story point of view. Like that's actually really interesting. These two guys sitting down and giving each other respect and talking about their worlds, and that's so unique, and that needs to like continue to be a thing. And I hope people don't just forget about that.
Going back to what movies are just always hit, Glenn Ross.
Never seen that.
Oh, it's a must. It's a must. You're talking about some of the greatest actors of all time. Doing a phenomenal play, shot by everyone involved in that is basically a genius. But what that really brings to the forefront in the context of this conversation is how important blocking is. There are some camera moves in there that are so subtle, but so effective and so important, that are always in service of how can we highlight and underscore the dynamics of the relationship between the characters on screen. This isn't let's make someone look pretty with cool lights in the background. This is what is the actual story of the relationship that's happening, and how can we underscore it and highlight it and support it. The camera blocking in that, I mean the regular blocking too, but the camera blocking in that is exquisite. It's subtle, but it is masterful. They cross the line where the line needs to be crossed, and moments that matter. Every decision they make is, how do we support the relationships? And then, of course, the acting in that is just, I mean, it's just first class. It's first class. Glengarry Glen Ross always hits.
I'll check it out. Yeah. I also think about, when you bring up blocking, I think about David Fincher. And I think about The Social Network and just all of David Fincher's movies. But The Social Network specifically, it's so... I actually had a friend who worked on David Fincher's movie Mank that came out on Netflix. Did you ever see that? It's about the writer of Citizen Kane writing Citizen Kane. Not the making of Citizen, but the writing of Citizen Kane.
Right.
My buddy worked on that, and he was a double in it. And he was described. I was like, dude, what's it like working with Fincher? And he was telling me, it's so interesting how he talks about blocking, how he talks about it's not just you need to hit your mark. It's it's these very specific things.
Yeah.
And
it's there to tell the story. It's not fucking random. I don't know, stand over there. No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And then I think about The Social Network, and just that famous scene where Andrew Garfield, he storms through the doors. He's like, Mark. And it's there's a reason why the camera is sort of a low angle on Andrew Garfield. And then there's a reason why it's higher up on Jesse. And then it's sort of it's this weird shady shot on Justin Timberlake. And there's reason for the camera. There's reason for the movement. There's reason, all this. And now all these people are together, and they're actually combating, or they're pushing their energy together into the center. And that center is the screen. It's the movie.
Yeah.
It's I find that so, I get hyped up when I think about that.
Fincher, he's so specific. He in some ways, I think he kind of contributed to the problem that we have today. He got a lot of directors trying to emulate him, but almost no one is that smart or that committed and dedicated. Now, he was one of the first people who, when using when using digital cinema, would edit in different takes. It'd be a scene of people around a table, for instance, and you'd be watching a scene play out, and it's actually his third take and her fifth take and the ninth take from this guy. And he would splice it. It was the first time you could do that with high resolution. And it's cool to talk about that. From an actor's perspective, it's dude, you're just shitting on the decisions that people made for a particular reason, and the energetic ball that was bouncing back and forth in the scene. He could get away with it because he's Fincher. But then you got the studios, and you got people saying, well, why can't we do this faster and better? Can't we just splice this here and do this there? And it was he was doing it for really, really, really specific reasons that he could justify. Those people are just not on that level.
Yeah, they're just not.
And so let's get back to the fundamentals. There's a scene in Saving Private Ryan. Spielberg was so good at this. You would have people don't generally think of Spielberg in terms of long takes. That's not what they remember. Go back and watch Private Ryan.
There's long takes in that.
Very long takes. There's that scene after they take the beach. Tom Hanks, Captain Miller's just pulled the translator, I think, and they're going to talk to the crew dudes. And there's I want to say it's almost 6 minutes.
Wow.
And it's not like Children of Men where it's oh, we're going to make this a spectacle. It was just
on them.
This is what we need to do to move the story from A to B to C to D. Let's just do it in this one take. And and each take had, that one take had multiple close-ups in it. It had multiple wide shots. It had everything that you would have without having to edit, because they understood how to block the fucking scene correctly. They took time doing it. It's stuff like that just has gone by the wayside on so many movies today. And I think I encourage filmmakers to just go back to the basics. Figure out what you're doing. Figure out how to work with actors. Figure out how to work with the timing. Figure out how to work with tempo, tension, and discovery.
I think YouTube
edit
is ruining
last.
Yeah, edit last. I think YouTube is ruining some of this as well, because I got sort of caught up with this whole make your thing look cinematic. Like make your shot cinematic. Like this whole just that term.
What does that mean?
What the fuck is cinematic?
What does that mean?
Dude? And it's like they're always talking about this the triangle over the fucking eye, and they're talking about depth of lighting. They're talking about just some major bullshit. It's like, how many movies are you watching, and that's really what's going on. Like that's not a movie. It's not what is like.
Yeah, was it just a shallow depth? Like, okay, your lens is wide open the whole time. Like, so there are some of the best movies of all time were shot at like a 4 or a 5.6. You know, just because like they needed to make it happen that way for focus when you're doing one take for 6. Like.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
So much of what what makes a good movie is just out of the necessity of that day of when they were making it.
Yeah,
that's like a real high quality thing. They were like trying to solve a problem they had on set, and then that's the shot. Like the only reason we think of like cinematic space battles is because of Star Wars, but Star Wars was solving a problem when it comes to an object moving in space. How do you make an object look like it's moving really fast in space? And then they were solving a problem for that.
Well, this kind of makes me think of this is sort of a Bitcoiner perspective on money and philosophy and life. Shooting things on film.
Oh yeah, yes, film. Yes, bring it up.
Shooting things on film was so much better.
Yeah.
It was so much better from a performance perspective.
Because you had to be specific.
The shit was expensive.
And expensive, yeah.
And you could only run a take for so long. Mm-hmm. You couldn't just like, let's do it 60 times like Fincher and then just like delete or like whatever, who cares, throw it on a hard drive. You had to plan and you had to prep and you had to rehearse, multiple rehearsals. You had camera blocking. You had to get everything in sync. It was a dance. And when that camera started rolling and you heard that film running through, it was like, fuck, I need to be on my game right now. Mm-hmm. This whole crew of 100 people and all of this money and all of this shit is coming down to this moment. It's important. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't exist in the digital world, but it's a different thing.
It is a different thing.
When you limit, just like Bitcoin, right? When you put a constraint on something, you're actually opening it up. One of the biggest lessons I ever learned as an artist was when I realized that limitation actually bred creativity. I didn't want to be limited. I had this young opinion like, oh, you know, whatever. And then once I finally realized that I had to constrain myself intentionally, and until I did that, I wasn't able to actually get as creative as I needed to get. Mm-hmm. My life changed after that. And that's true across all mediums. It's not just like on stage or whatever. Like with money, scarcity and money creates abundance and everything else. There's an inverse relationship between the two. We have to have structure.
Yeah.
We have to have limitation. We have to have structure. That's our gateway to the infinite. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. But yeah, I look back on those days shooting stuff in film, and it was so much more important.
Yeah. Well, people who are on the show Euphoria, on HBO, they filmed on film. They had Kodak create a very a special film stock.
That's dope
for them. I'm not sure if you know that it was this old film stock that was only around for 16 millimeter. This I believe it was called Ektachrome something.
Okay.
But the filmmaker Sam Levinson, he went to Kodak and he wanted this film stock that was discontinued to be recreated for 35 millimeter.
That's dope.
And everyone involved with that has just talked about how it's just a different vibe. It's just a different thing because you don't have a lot of it. You need to get the take right away, and it will look a certain way for this particular reason. And it's so just boom, 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 boom. There's reason for reason, and structure. Just so much structure. That's why Tarantino films on film. That's why Nolan films on film. And he's trying to push the boundaries with that with IMAX film. It's like, film is still around. I'm pretty sure the Russos who are directing the next Avengers movies, they hinted at wanting to film the new ones on IMAX film because of that seriousness, because of that thing. And I just find that so interesting. And I wanted to shoot on film. So my film school story, I went to Scottsdale Community College in Arizona, which is like, it's where Bill Hader went. It's where David Spade went.
Okay.
Which a random connection to those guys. But really good film school. and there's a section where you actually buy film from Kodak, but I dropped out before we did that. So I've never gotten to work with film, but I've always seen like the value of it, and I've always wanted to work with that. And then I look up the prices for film right now, and it's like one reel or a case, which is like 2 or 3 reels or something like that. It's like $1,000 or like $700, and it's like wow, and that's like maybe 30 minutes of footage. It's like that's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. And
No.
and then I'm thinking about like how much money is Nolan spending on his film? Like how much money? Like how do you know how much money you need for how much film you need? Like how do you even calculate that? It's like wow, like they were just burning through that shit back in the day.
You had to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had to be specific.
That's the only way you manifest, right? When you're specific.
Specificity is the key to everything.
Yeah.
It is the key to everything. You like, especially as an actor, you can't be general. You cannot be middle of the road. It can't be middle of the road nonsense choices. You have to be as specific as you possibly can.
Yeah. Amazon's not, oh yeah, we'll do 2 days sometimes, 2-day shipping sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, you know Amazon is Amazon because of 2-day shipping.
Yep.
You know Nolan is Nolan because of his choices.
Yeah.
Like,
and you know, again, you rehearsed. Like back in the day, it was like the movie was already done before you got on set. I mean, that's not totally true. There's things where there are definitely movies where they're just like figuring it out. But like, generally speaking, the objective was like, we're just going to grab the shots that already exist in our mind, already exist on paper. We know the framing. We're not finding it on set. It's this. It's been this for 2 years. Go get it. Make it happen. You know, Elia Kazan, Sidney Lumet. You know, you started these things with rehearsals. You rehearsed for months. You blocked it out. You taped it out. You went into a room. You built the set with painter's tape. Like, you didn't show up on set and like, oh, well, I guess stand over there and somebody load up a whatever on the screen. Like, again, I'm being facetious, but you had to be as specific as you possibly could. And you're like, cool, we got, you know, and then there was an economic reality behind it too, which is like,
You're burning money.
We're losing daylight. We can't come back here tomorrow. You have to get this in 5 takes.
yeah. Yeah.
You don't have a choice. Figure it out. They're like, we'll fix it in post. Like, oh, well, you know, like, no.
No, we need to get it now.
Dude, it matters.
It needs to be now. Now.
There's this crucible. There was this, you know, and this like working on set is this incredibly unique experience. It's crazy. It's like going to war. I'd say that I've never been to war. It's not really like going to war, but there's something about it that is hyper collaborative. Generally speaking, most people were there because they felt like it was hyper important. You're all rowing in the same direction. It's really, really hard. Everyone knows it's really, really hard.
You're giving yourself.
You give your all to it, and but there's a limit. Like if you didn't get it in that day, it didn't get done. You failed. Like you failed.
That's serious.
So more of that. You know, like
Yeah.
let's raise the stakes. Let's raise the stakes.
Yeah. Well, Zach, I got no more questions for you.
Dude,
This has been wild.
it was an honor. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thank
Thank
you.
you for having me on.
I'm excited for 2025, dude. I'm going to be making short films for IndeeHub.
Let's go.
And then I'll be distributing them through RSS. Yeah? Is that going to be a thing for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah?
We're going to figure out the pricing on that. But so what we're going to do right now, we're working on this. We're going to create what we're calling extensions.
Okay.
And so like if you're a filmmaker, you can upload a movie. We have to approve it. There's like a base layer of quality. But basically once it's approved, like your movie's up there, we're not going to charge you. There's nothing there. But then there's going to be certain things where you can add an extension. So if you want RSS capability, you can add that extension. And for the foreseeable future, that's going to be just, we'll let you do it. But at some point, it's basically like we have to host for you. And so we got to figure out what the cost and the price is to push and pull data.
Yeah, that was a big thing that I was like thinking about. I boosted into an Adam Curry show, and I told him like my movie is on IndeeHub and it's on the podcasting apps, and he was like, "Oh, he's hosting." Like it was like he's like, he was like warning you about the hosting fees, about the broadband.
Yeah.
So like that's interesting. I'm happy that you're thinking about that because I think RSS distribution is really important, but it can be very difficult because you can't really. It's hard to distribute video like that. So.
Yeah. I trust that it's a market thing and the market will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that our primary business model? Like no. If we can figure out a way for it to work for filmmakers, then fantastic. Like our job is to give tools to filmmakers to do their jobs and succeed. So we'll have that. Like if you want to add audience capabilities, you'll be able to add that as an extension. And this is going to grow. There's going to be all of these different things that not all filmmakers are going to want. Some people don't care about advanced analytics. Some people want advanced analytics. There's all of this stuff that we're going to sort of like figure out how to mix and match. But 100%, dude. Like, so the RSS will be there. Like, let's go. Let's get the movies on there and let's get people figuring out the splits, right? Like, let's get your whole cast and crew list on there. Give them the ability to also promote, to feel like they're there, their profile's there, and their payments are happening through there. The second somebody's like just gets to like, oh, somebody's watching my movie right now. Like, there's value being streamed to this wallet. Like it's
a big deal.
That's crazy.
It's a really big deal.
Cool as hell.
It is cool as hell. So I'm going for it. I will make more short films. I'm going to make like 5 short films in 2025.
Let's do it.
5 films for 2025.
Let's do it.
On IndeeHub. I'm excited, man. Thank you for making IndeeHub. Thank you for being an innovator. Thank you for just wanting to make the world a better place. Like you're a good human being.
Thank you. No, back at you, man. Thank you for putting your work on there and having the enthusiasm and the courage to, really it is. It takes a lot of courage to look at something, to stare something in the face that isn't going as well as it could go and say like, I'm going to put myself on the line and try to make this better. All of that encouragement and respect I give to filmmakers like you. I want to see you guys succeed. I want to see you crush it. It's important. Like I believe that. Like this is important. Like there's silly movies and we do silly things and we're learning and we're growing, but like there are times when it matters tremendously and it will alter the course of human history and expand human consciousness. And if we can all row in that direction, then it's a life well lived.
I'm for it. Dude, Zach, thank you so much.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you.
Hell yeah.